Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, November 15th, and today is a full session of the County Council. And we will begin today with a presentation with a proclamation recognizing Councilmember for a Day winner by Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And before we actually normally do our presentation down before the dais, we wanted to run a video on our Councilmember for a Day challenge. I just want to start off by saying this is my last time doing this as a council member as I rotate off of the council, and it couldn't be one of the more prouder moments, because we just found out this morning that we've identified a young person who not only had a great presentation that talked about the importance of affordable housing here in Montgomery County and why it matters to her and why it should matter to every single one of us. We also found out that she was a part of a very unique program called Montgomery Can Code that helped young individuals who are interested in different technological career pathways to be able to seek ways to use app development to be able to talk about something that's important in their community. And she was one of the ones on a team that was highlighted and recognized by a partnership between Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, Apple, Montgomery County Public Schools, and now to see her as council member for a day truly speaks volumes. It says that if we invest in our children and give them opportunities so that their voices can be heard, they will do great things. It says that we owe it to every single one of our children to make sure that their voices are heard and lifted, and that they have an opportunity to be able to make sure that they sound off about those issues that are so important to them. And so it is a bit of a surreal moment right now that I find myself in, looking at a picture that I've used as I've talked about digital equity and access and young people's voices for over 5 years. And now this young woman will shortly be brought up to the dais as our student council member for the day. So with that, I will turn it over to staff to go ahead and run our video. And then I will turn to my colleagues to give some of their comments as well.
As chair of the Education and Culture Committee
For the Montgomery County Council,
Councilmember Craig Rice has always had a deep commitment to education and giving the youth a voice.
I'm part of the ACES program, and it's been a tremendous benefit to me.
He started the Councilmember for a Day challenge in 2016 as a way to create a platform for Montgomery County Public School students to share their thoughts and engage with local government.
So the Councilmember for a Day challenge was something that was inspired by seeing our teen town halls.
My name is Jacqueline. I'm from Blair. I go to Roberto Clemente Middle School.
And seeing the voices of our teens come into the county council and talk about issues that were important to them.
How are you planning to deal with bullying?
If you know someone who's being bullied and you go to an administrator or you go to a teacher and they don't listen to you, you have the power and the voice, and if they're not doing it, then you come to us and let me know. And I thought to myself that we needed to provide an even greater opportunity besides that one day to where individuals could talk about issues that they care about, and also to continue to inspire those who didn't ever have a chance to come to these teen town halls to have their voices heard as well.
And for the last 6 years, the program has had many entries on issues ranging from affordable housing, gender equality, mental health, eating disorders, and much more. With last year's expansion to the challenge to include voices, virtual, online, innovative, and civically engaged storytelling experience, students have had the opportunity to work with a mentor as they learn to produce a short video from start to finish.
When we enacted Voices and changed the Councilmember for a Day program, it really turned things on its head, because it really was not just an opportunity to have your voices heard, but to actually make sure that it was seen and felt. Being able to create these videos that encapsulated all of the imagery of an issue, in addition to the words and feelings, were something that really transformed the empowerment of these individuals. It took their advocacy level to a much higher state in terms of being able to broadcast this truly to the entire world.
And everyone congratulating me and telling me how my video inspired them made me feel really good.
About why these issues are so important to them. through this next level of the Council Member for a Day program.
This year's submissions touched on a wide range of topics, but there was a common thread.
This year's common thread of affordable housing is one that is ripe on everyone's mind coming out of the pandemic.
Hi, my name is Malika Wandi.
This year's winner, Malika Wandi, a student at Blair High School, produced an inspirational video on the lack of affordable housing in our community.
It's because it's something that relates to me. That is something that is very close to heart and that I am passionate about, especially me and my mother. I've been through the struggles with her about trying to find homes, going to different real estate agents.
Here's a house that I would love to live in, just enough for me and my mom.
And it's just the whole entire process of the housing market. It's been a little difficult for our family, so affordable housing is something that I'm very passionate about, and that's why I had chose it for this program.
The houses behind me are close to $1 million.
With Councilmember Rice, I hope to make a change. I want to demand affordable housing, not just for me, but for people all over the world. I do love to see others happy, and I feel that politics is something that I could see myself in the future, and that I hope to pursue.
Although I'm just a teen, I know that our voices make a difference. I'm just one person, you are just one person. And all it takes is one step, day by day, to make a change. I'm Malika Wandi, signing off for now.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited for this, by the way.
The Councilmember for a Day program opens many doors for students.
I was really surprised at how interested I got into this debate over septic versus sewage.
Most of the areas that we're talking about prefer septic over sewer.
Because it's not something that would regularly interest me. I even got the chance to share one of my personal experiences with my grandparents. I'm just surprised that we haven't done that yet, because my family's from Newport, Arkansas. Like, there's like 15,000 in the whole area, you know? So the idea that they've already done that kind of shocked me a little bit.
That was great to share. Thank you very much, Ms.
Can you come
Johnson.
back every week, please?
It not only teaches them about civic engagement and public policy, but also about leadership.
We want to see folks succeed. We want to address the issues that are important.
Just basically telling me what everybody was talking about, because there was a lot of statistics and numbers flying around. He just wanted to make sure that I wasn't lost.
But that can only happen with participation and involvement. We are inspiring young leaders. But you don't have to be in elected office to be a leader. All you have to do is make sure that you lift up your voice and you speak about something that you care about. That's what being a leader is. And that's what we're inspiring through this Councilmember for a Day program. And that's what I've seen from every single one of our winners up to this point.
As he closes out his last Councilmember for a Day on the Council, Councilmember Rice hopes to see the program expand beyond Montgomery County and other jurisdictions in the state of Maryland and nationwide, so that students can have an avenue to engage with their local government.
The reality is, if we are going to tackle the issues that are so important to us, it is going to be all hands on deck.
Look, we as a collective body on the council just don't feel that that's the right thing for us to do or the right direction. And that's how government works. And I think
that if we're not preparing a bench to prepare for our future, we're going to be in trouble. We see that now with climate change. We see that now with political and racial unrest in our communities.
What do we want, Jordan? When do we want it?
We see it in divides across this country. We've got to bring people together. And the way to do that is by getting people involved and engaged and having conversations all at one table, talking about how we can make a better community, a better society. It starts one person at a time. Your voice is incredibly important, and government needs to listen. Each person sitting down and talking about their own shared experience and why it's important to them. That's the Councilmember for a Day program at its core. It really, truly is about just making sure that everyone knows your voice matters. I really want to thank our production team, including Mike Springerth and everyone who came together on this. I really also want to thank a good friend of mine, Sonia Healy, who's been an incredible proponent of this program and helping us to get this started, talking with me about some great ideas and how this was to develop. I'm a little bit overwhelmed right now. Let me turn to my colleagues. I know that Councilmember Navarro couldn't be with us in person, so I'm going to turn to Councilmember Navarro and then Councilmember Jawando. So, Councilmember Navarro.
Well, first of all, congratulations, Councilmember Rice. Your vision here was really spot on, and what you said about building that bench, strengthening that bench is so important. So I want to congratulate Ms. Wandy for being the council member for a day, and unfortunately I was exposed to COVID, so I want to make sure that I exercise caution, but I figured that now she can sit next to Councilmember Rice in my chair, so I think that all worked out. But I just want to say that as you were also sharing, it is emotional because for me personally, one of the things that I've always enjoyed the most about serving with all of you is the fact that so many of you have had these extraordinary ideas that are a little bit outside of the norm when it comes to elected officials really stepping up in ways that are unique. And this particular program, I think, serves as such a unique opportunity for our young people who oftentimes they do say that they don't get invited to be at the table, that they are, usually just kind of left on the side while the adults are making all the decisions. And I think this program in particular, this tradition really needs to continue because it does allow for a young person to sit at that table, at that dais, and to see how the decisions are made. It looks simple from the outside, but once you're sitting there, you realize it's usually not. So congratulations again to Ms. Wandy, and also again to you, Councilmember Rice, for your vision. And I know that this will be part of your legacy that will only be strengthened in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro. Appreciate that. Let me turn to my other colleague on the Education Committee, and then I've got the Council President and Councilmember Friedson. So, Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. And to my colleague, Councilmember Navarro, it's good to see you. All things work together for good, so you'll have a nice seat. Every other councilmember for a day has kind of been squeezed in. You will be fully at the dais. So this is a unique and appropriate honor. And as I was telling Councilmember Rice and my colleagues upstairs, this program will continue. We all think it's a great leadership opportunity. And as I told you, Councilmember Wandy, that the experience you had and what you talked about in your video about growing up, trying to achieve housing, the cost of housing, how it's been a struggle for your family personally, but also you've seen it in your community. Those are the types of lived and life experience that we need in our leaders. Everyone up here, and myself included, has a story about, particularly if we grew up here, but no matter where we're from, about something that impacted us and animated us and gave us some passion when we were younger that led us to the dais today. And so whatever you do, and whatever any of our children do, keep that connection to those core issues of who you want to help and assist and be a voice for. So we're so proud of you. I can't wait to serve with you today. And hopefully you'll come and intern and do other things. You're only a sophomore, which is amazing to me. You've got so much ahead of you. And we're very proud. And then finally, I just want to say to Councilmember Rice, thank you for your vision and your passion for this. Watching that video was really telling. It was done really well. It just shows how much you care about the kids in our community and just how much you've put into this over the years. So we recognize that and we appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I do want to begin by acknowledging Councilmember Rice's leadership, his humility, and the way that he has been able to lift all of us up through his vision. And there's no better example of that than this initiative and program. And I second Councilmember Jawando's unofficial motion, which I'm sure will be unanimous among both our returning and incoming colleagues, because this is a tremendous legacy. The students that have had the opportunity to participate in this program, both through the application process, which I know you and your team are extraordinarily thoughtful in making some tough decisions, because we have some outstanding students here in Montgomery County. And let's hope that the seeds that are planted today continue to take fruit moving forward, because this generation of students has faced more than any of us as adults can possibly imagine. And we have to recognize their resilience, their strength, and their leadership. So congratulations. We look forward to serving with you today, but more importantly, supporting you in all that you do moving forward. And I want to recognize your mom, who is extraordinary. I am the proud father of 4 kids, and I know how difficult it can be at times being a mom or dad, especially these days. And so it's clear that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So congratulations and thank you very much. I'll turn it over now to Councilmember Friedson.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to start where the council president left off and lift up Mom here. Congratulations, and certainly a testament to you and everything that you've done, the values that you've instilled, and certainly the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So thank you for everything that you've done. And Ms. Wani, congratulations. I was one of the other council members who was at that Montgomery King Code event, and it was such a great experience walking in this morning to breakfast. I was not aware of the connection, and then realizing the connection and going back to that really exciting day, and it was no surprise once we made the connection that connection existed, given your engagement and involvement in that program. But it just shows the sustained level of leadership, and I have to say that something tells me that you will be back sitting at this dais for a more permanent stay and tenure. And I think it's fitting that this is almost our last meeting, maybe our last full day meeting for Councilmember Rice. This really is an extraordinary legacy to leave. I think our young people are going to save us from ourselves in so many different ways, and really needing to look to you for both why we're here and the reason for the policy making that we're doing for a community that we want to leave better than the one that we found, and for the clarity that I think young people have, that you understand and see, and for us to be reminded of that clarity on a day-to-day basis. And I think housing affordability, for that to be the issue of the day, this council has really tried to lead on that issue, I think more perhaps than any other council before. We've got a lot more work to do, as you noted in your video. But it's really an important issue, and one that we need as much engagement on as possible. So we're proud of you. We're excited for you. We're looking forward to having you join us up here. We appreciate Councilmember Navarro for offering us on this side of the dais a little extra elbow room, because normally it gets a little bit tight on Councilmember for a day. But look forward to it, and it's going to be a great day. And congratulations to you. Congratulations to everybody. And well done, my friend. We're looking forward to continue this. I think I'm going to third the motion for us to continue this program, because it really does highlight really why we're here and what we're doing and why it matters. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Council President. Congratulations to you and your family. I certainly agree with all that's been said. And of course, we want to thank our good friend and congratulate our good friend, Councilmember Rice. For years we've said that today is a day that we probably, it's the only opportunity we've ever had for 10 votes. Many times we'll have a 9-0 vote, but now we're going to change that. We're going to get to a dozen votes when the council member for a day is up here. And I also think it's a wonderful day because when you're sitting up here, Councilmember Friedson can no longer say he's the youngest council member sitting up here. I mean, he likes to mention that, so we'll see if he brings it up today. But it truly is a good feeling to know that our young people, and we've known this for a long, long time, that our young people are truly going to make Montgomery County, as strong as it is today, even stronger. And you're bringing a great part of that with you today. And I'm going to end by saying that every dream needs a dreamer. It's been Councilmember Rice, and it's going to be others, but it's been Councilmember Rice who's brought the dream about doing council member for a day and many other topics. But the reason the dream is working is because of you and every person who's been council member for a day up till now. And so thank you on behalf of a very appreciative Montgomery County, and thank you for keeping Councilmember Rice's dream a true dream. Thank you very much, Council President.
Cindy, don't worry, we're not going to ask her to guess who.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, very kind of you. What is that noise?
Great. You want to call? Okay. So now we get to do the formal part. You've seen a lot of the great things that were acknowledged about the Council Member for a Day Challenge. You've heard from my colleagues. Now I want you to hear from our newest council member. And before you hear from her in person, I want you to see this great video. So we're going to run her video. It's only 2 minutes, so you don't have too long to stand up here. But I want you to see what I saw, what my staff saw, what my colleagues saw in terms of why this was so important and why this young woman is so dynamic.
Hi, my name is Malika Wanti, a 10th grader at Montgomery Blair High School and a resident of Montgomery County, Maryland. Here behind me is where I have resided since I was 9 months old. Primarily, the reason being wanting to stay in our wonderful school district. You're probably thinking, wow, what a stable living position, wanting to age in place. Well, there's a little more to it. Here's a house that I would love to live in, just enough for me and my mom. Hopefully a few more. Though due to the rising in housing prices and inflation, it's difficult for families to afford. Even military families like mine, it's hard to become a first-time home buyer. The houses behind me are close to $1 million for purchase, which is normal for this area. Though, for a middle-class family looking to move out of renting, these prices can make it extremely difficult to afford. Especially when the average wage in the U.S. does not rise the same rate as housing prices do. This next clip expresses some voices of Montgomery County residents and their view on affordable housing.
You know, back in the day, people bought one home and they stayed with it their entire life. Right, yeah. And now you have what they call starter homes, and then you have sort of the second home, the larger home that people move into. A lot of the housing market's focused on those second homes that people buy, and those starter homes, they're not building them anymore.
Within this area of Montgomery County are really good schools.
These issues for my neighbors are not easy to hear, and while there are programs for affordable housing such as HOC and other nonprofit organizations, the rise in prices of the housing market affects people all over the county and state. A solution to this matter is to expand affordable housing and ownership programs in Montgomery County. Although I'm just a teen, I know that our voices make a difference. I'm just one person, you are just one person, and all it takes is one step, day by day, to make a change. I'm Malika Wanti, signing off for now.
So now, your newest council member here in Montgomery County, Malika Wanti.
Good morning, everyone. This is such a surreal experience. I am so lucky to have been given this opportunity to meet all the council members and for my video to have won the program for 2022. And as I said in the video, I do want to demand affordable housing because even today that is still an issue in Montgomery County and all over the states. And so I'm hoping that with the help of the council members that can become a reality, affordable housing. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Malika. And so we are now going to read the proclamation, Councilmember Duando and I, that's going to be presented to you. You have already been pinned. She already has her council member pin. And so we are going to read the proclamation, which cements you as our council member for a day. I'm sorry. Malika Wanti, a sophomore at Montgomery Blair High School, go Blazers, I did not know that before, participated in Councilmember Craig Rice's 7th annual Councilmember for a Day program that required participants to create a video describing a public policy issue and offering a call to action. And
whereas the Councilmember for a Day program was created to spark interest in and provide access to local government operations and deepen an understanding of and promote activism about public policy issues that are important to our young people by shadowing the Montgomery County Council Chair of the Education and Culture Committee for one day. And
whereas the Councilmember for a Day Challenge represents a partnership with Montgomery County Public Schools and Montgomery College to offer a robust 5-week curriculum on inclusive storytelling through digital journalism. And
Ms. Wandy, Councilmember Wandy, submitted an exceptional video, Affordable Housing in Montgomery County, which you just saw, clearly demonstrating obstacles to home ownership for military and middle-class families in our community. And
whereas Ms. Wandy's winning video demonstrates her understanding of the affordable housing dilemma for families and the power of community's voice with a strong call to action for our elected officials to address challenges to home ownership. And whereas Ms. Wandy's submission showcases her excellent video production and presentation skills, now therefore be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby congratulates Malaika Wandy, and be it further that the County Council recognizes her service to the Montgomery County as the 2022 Honorary Council Member for a Day, presented this 15th day of November in the year 2022. Congratulations, Councilmember Wandy.
All right. We now resume our council agenda, and once again, congratulations and thank you, Councilmember Rice, for your leadership. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started, colleagues. The first is that Councilmember Navarro is joining us virtually today. As she mentioned, she had a COVID exposure in her family, and we hope she remains healthy. And our colleague, Councilmember Hucker, is on an international trip, joining a delegation from the state of Maryland on economic development matters, and so he will not be joining us today. We now move on to general business. Madam Clerk, do we have any agenda changes or announcements?
Yes, good morning, Council President, Council members. We just have a few announcements this morning. Agenda item number 3, we've added expedited bill 3422 streets and roads, clarification of roads. The lead sponsor is Council President, and public hearing action is scheduled for December 6th, 2022 at 1:30. And we have added to the consent calendar item 8M, supplemental appropriation 2318 to the county government's FY23 operating budget, Department of Transportation, streets and roads, roadside trees protection, $60,750. Sorts of funds for this is the street tree planting fund, The public hearing action is tentatively scheduled for December 6, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. The council did not receive petitions this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so, are there any changes to the approved minutes? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. So that takes us on to the next item on the agenda, which is legislative session day number 32. And we begin with the work session on Bill 1322, Buildings, Comprehensive Building Decarbonization. Just a quick housekeeping announcement. We see the wonderful signs, and we do see them. We appreciate you bringing them. I just humbly request that you not lift them up high so that people behind you can see. So that's it. I will turn it over to the chair of our Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee, Councilmember Reamer, to tee this one up. And we have Ms. Nadeau here, who did an excellent job, as she always does, staffing this important issue. But with that, Councilmember Reamer.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And welcome to our council member for a day. We're glad you're here. Today's a really important discussion about the strategy in the big picture for how we're going to get our very destructive climate trends under control. And one of the strategies that has come into real focus is called electrification. And electrification is about transforming the energy grid so that all energy we use is clean, renewable energy, and powering everything on that grid. So no longer having gasoline-powered cars, no longer having gas-powered heating equipment or gas-powered cooking equipment, but running everything on a clean grid. And that vision is the vision that is found right at the core of recent national action by the Biden administration and the Congress. It is what the climate activism community has come together around as a path forward. And I can certainly say, as someone who's active on environmental issues and have been for my whole life, embracing this strategy has given me hope for the first time that there's a way out of this. And one of the most depressing things is to confront a challenge and feel that you have no way to resolve it. But the electrification vision gives us a path forward. The legislation that the committee is recommending to the council today is focused on new construction. It's only focused on new construction. And what it does is it requires the executive to submit to the county council a building code that will require new construction to be all electric. And the goal is for those buildings that are all electric to be powered on a grid that is increasingly all clean. Today, the legislature has adopted a mandate that moves us to 50% clean energy, and we hope that in the coming years, the legislature will make that 100% clean energy. So a building that is all electric, running on a 100% clean grid, is a 100% clean building. But a building that is running on the grid and still has fossil fuel powered equipment inside the building, that is burning gas, for example, to heat the building, is not a clean building. And so as we think about our strategy in the big picture, one of the things that we can do is to stop adding new fossil fuel powered equipment into our buildings and instead have our buildings be all electric. Now, we've heard a lot about the impact of this legislation, and a lot of that commentary has confused the question of transforming the existing building structures to clean energy versus requiring new buildings. And as I share this with my colleagues, to think about the impact of this legislation is to step back and look around us and see the buildings all around us, commercial and residential, and know that this legislation will not affect any of those buildings. The heavy work of transitioning the building sector to clean energy is through a different regulatory path. It's the Building Energy Performance Standards. This is the incremental approach of affecting new buildings only. And over a very long period of time, new buildings will become all the buildings that we see around us. But just as an example, there are nearly 400,000 buildings in Montgomery County, and we create something like 2,500 to 3,000 new building permits every year. So that is less than 1% every year building permits added to our building environment, our landscape of buildings. So I hope that that helps convey the incremental impact here. And as you think about the relative weight of the regulatory strategy to get to clean buildings, recognizing that it's substantially, almost entirely, initially about the existing building structures, which this law does not impact. Now, we did remove from this law the challenging question of renovations. And that was a difficult, component that we didn't have great answers yet for. And the executive branch agreed that we could take some more time to think about how this legislation or the county could address what happens when you're trying to renovate an existing structure. So this bill does not address that. Instead, it focuses strictly on new construction. And again, it will require the executive to bring us a building code. Now, the county retains all authority, the council retains all authority, and can amend that building code as the council sees fit through a negotiation process with the executive branch. This regulation has to be approved by the council. It does not have to be, the council has the approval authority over the regulation. So we did exempt certain sectors, and we wanted to be sure that our private sector has a confident path for life sciences, which can sometimes be highly energy intensive and needs to have some flexibility. For the restaurant sector, because although I do believe that induction stoves are the ultimate answer that will reduce injuries, reduce fires, and promote safety and health for employees in restaurants, I think it's going to take some time to move the restaurant industry there. And so we did not include the restaurant industry, just as an example, or the commercial kitchens, just as an example. So we made a number of concessions to the stickier points of the building environment. But we also noted that today, new commercial is almost all electric anyway. We learned that during the BEPS process. Largely, the commercial sector, when there's a new commercial office building or a commercial structure, it will be all electric already. So for the commercial sector, this is a very incremental change, and for the residential sector, it's an important one, because the easy path is to do what you always do, install gas-powered equipment. But now we have the technology for heat pumps to provide comfort and efficient, affordable power to deliver heat into a building. And one of the things we learned early on was that the demand on the grid for cooling is greater than the demand on the grid for heating. And so this legislation, with its incremental addition to the breadth of our electric power need, does not cause a greater demand in the winter than already exists in the summer. So it fits within the envelope of existing energy demand, which is not to say that there aren't challenges. And I think we all should be transparent that transforming the building sector is a mammoth undertaking, because it requires transforming the whole electrical grid. And we need new equipment in our electrical grid in order to make this future possible. But there is probably nothing that is more worthwhile than spending what is going to be needed to spend to transform our electric grid to have the capacity to run on all clean electricity. And that is going to be a federal priority. It already is in the federal initiatives that have come forward. It's going to be a state priority. It needs to be a local government priority. So all these pieces can fit together and will need to fit together. And they're going to take time. It's going to take ultimately decades. And every year that we wait is another year that it's not getting better. So I hope my colleagues will be as enthusiastic about this as we are. I want to thank my committee member colleagues, Councilmember Freitz and Councilmember Duando. We worked through this and came forward with a unified recommendation to the council, balancing many competing concerns, voices from the community, and challenging issues. So with that, I will, if my colleagues would like to make any comments, I'll turn it back to you, Council President. Council staff can take us through the packet and we can ask questions as we proceed.
Councilmember Jawando.
Go ahead, if you want to clap. You
No, actually, no. Please don't do that. Yeah,
that.
thank you. We've been through that the last couple of weeks. We just like to get through the work session.
Politely.
Yes.
I want to thank Councilmember Reamer. Change is hard, change is necessary. And I co-sponsored this bill, and we worked it through the committee. In 2017, previous council made a declaration of a climate emergency. 2021, we had a action plan from the county executive. We've taken steps with the BEPS bill, the Building Performance Bill, with other efforts, but this is an important one. If you look at transportation and you look at our buildings, there's no way we meet our goals, ensure a clean, high-quality environment for our children and our children's children, unless we move towards electrification. It's also a more inclusive technology around the world, and people have access to electricity and other modern forms of technology. As I mentioned, it will be difficult to make this transition, but this is a very measured approach. As the chair mentioned, we took steps to delay. We will have to address the question of rehabs and tear downs. And we will do that. And I'll be on the next council now. I know that for sure. So we will take that up with our future colleagues. But this also allows the executive to move with deliberate speed to come back to us with a plan to electrify the building sector. This is an emergency. We have to move quickly. And I appreciate the support from advocates recognizing that. I appreciate my colleagues on the Fed committee for recognizing that. And I hope that we'll pass it as one of the many steps we're going to need to take as part of a larger transition that will be hard, but that we must do because of the urgency of the moment. So excited to move it forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you to my Fed colleagues, to the advocates for this important legislation. Look, there is no question that we need to focus on cleaning our energy, and it oftentimes boils down to us battling between things that are important to us. We also have to worry about affordability, and it really is something where our newest council member for a day has reminded me about how important it is for us to ensure that all of these new things that we're talking about that are going to be a part of this initiative, who's paying for them? Because at the end of the day, if it means that affordable housing becomes even more expensive because we haven't done the other parts to ensure that we're not balancing the prices for units, then we still lose. We want this to be a win-win. And it reminds me of the conversation that we had around the minimum wage, one in which we were trying to create a balance between ensuring that we paid people more money, which was incredibly important, but at the same time not forgetting that we have young people who still couldn't get jobs, who still, oh, by the way, still can't get jobs in our community. We have to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's when we do this kind of legislation. It is not just about doing what we know sounds good and feels good in the moment, But we have to take those additional steps to make sure that there aren't any kinds of unforeseen, unfortunate consequences as a result. All of the advocates in the room, who I know, especially from CASA and others, know that we fight each and every day to ensure that there's affordable housing for our residents. We also know that gas currently is cheaper than electricity. So as we're doing these kinds of things, it is important for us to make sure that we're having these kinds of plans for what it is that we're going to do to make sure that we can retain the affordability that's important for our residents. And so this is not to say that we don't do this bill. I'm not saying that at all. Please don't get me wrong. We have to do this. And I agree with Councilmember Joando. We do need to act. The urgency of now is upon us. However, we've got to make sure that we do it right. And so I think that, again, by planning, making sure that our electrical grid is prepared, making sure that we have the support that's necessary for those who now are switched to electric, and then because of that, prices go up. We need to make sure that our federal government partners and our state partners are there to ensure that we can make some of the protections that are there for some of our most vulnerable residents. All of that matters. We've got to just make sure that we've got all those pieces that are there before we just run into making sure that we just pass something. And so I think that for us, it is about taking the time, asking the questions, making sure that we've got all of those answers that we know are there to support those who are most vulnerable in our communities. Now, I'll just say one last thing. I also understand that those who are vulnerable in our communities are the ones who also are suffering from the most environmental injustice. I just passed a bill dealing with radon and mandating that we have radon testing for individuals in apartment buildings and rental units. So I get it. I know that there's two sides of this coin. The key is that we can win with making sure that both sides are addressed. And that's the key in this whole conversation. So I look forward to the conversation. I look forward to something that comes out that addresses all of those situations because we have to be mindful of all of those before we just move forward. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Let me just sort of set some logistical thoughts here. So the Fed Committee did an outstanding job, as you always do, in working through complex issues and trying to consider all angles, as Councilmember Rice mentioned, and all of us on the council continue to be extremely appreciative. You need to look no further than Thrive and the Fed Committee's excellent work that really teed us up well as a full body to be able to enact what is going to be a historical piece of legislation. But my colleagues and I have not had the benefit of the robust and excellent Fed Committee sessions on this topic that I have come to appreciate as complex. And so we're going to have this work session today to get as many questions as we can answered. But we have to acknowledge the fact that this is the last time this body as a whole will be meeting as a full body. And so before the 29th, where we have sort of a day that won't be as quite full a session as this one historically. So we're going to get through as much as we can today, answer as many questions as we can today, and see where we are at the end of this as a body. So we appreciate the opportunity. So with that, Ms. Nadeau, I'm going to turn it over to you to walk us through the packet, acknowledging that this goes beyond just the county, and there are other stakeholders involved in this that will be charged with implementing the policies that we enact today. And of course, the executive branch is has been involved in this through the Department of Environmental Protection and other county agencies as well. But I just wanted to make sure that we've got a lot to get through. We'll get through as much of it as we can, but just wanted to set that up. So, Ms. Nadeau.
Good morning. Yes, I believe we have DP, DPS, and some of representatives from utilities here. If there are any questions that I am not able to answer, which I'm sure might happen. So to recap, this bill requires the county executive to issue all electric building standards. You'll see in the packet, the council received a lot of testimony, both in opposition and support, which I tried to summarize fully in the first 2 pages. The economic and fiscal impact statements were mixed, but there was a favorable racial equity and social justice impact statement. So I guess, Council President, my first question would be, would you rather go through the Fed committee amendments first and then address the issues, or would you like to do the issues first?
Why don't we do the issues first, followed by the Fed committee amendments?
Okay. So the way the packet is set up, beginning on page 5, it goes through the different jurisdictions, as well as many of the questions raised. A few jurisdictions have passed similar legislation to this bill. They include D.C., New York, Massachusetts, Seattle, Sacramento, San Jose. The tables you'll see, I believe it starts at the bottom of page 5, show the different ways that different jurisdictions have done this. The deadlines are different. Some of the exemptions are different. The Fed committee in its second work session did go through each of the exemptions and compare them to Bill 1322, and due to that actually added a few additional exemptions. Moving on to page,
just on neighboring jurisdictions, could you describe a little bit of DC's experience? Our understanding is that they enacted similar legislation about a year ago, which is terrific, but have also had some questions that have been arisen since then. So any insight that you could provide, or because they are obviously our neighboring jurisdiction and the one that's the most relevant to us among others that have enacted this.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, DC passed a very similar legislation in July, requiring their mayor to issue final regulations by end of 2026. And the way that language is drafted in DC is slightly different to this bill. It says on-site fuel combustion shall not be permitted for the provision of thermal energy to the building, which is in effect banning burning natural gas for furnaces and water heaters. Because of that, there has been some testimony about whether, some correspondence received about whether that's more flexible than straight up saying all electric. In effect, it could be the same, but the argument made by some of the utilities is it's a bit more flexible because it doesn't straight out say it has to be all electric in case there's other alternatives. In terms of updates, you probably heard very recently, DC has what's called the Construction Codes Coordinating Board, and that body is who would approve the all-electric building regulations and then send them over to the DC legislative body to approve them, and again, they have till 2026 to do so. So very recently, the board actually split. They approved the all-electric building for residential, but actually voted against a similar proposal for the commercial code, and that's due to a lot of the testimony that was received by DC from Pepco. That doesn't mean that the original bill is dead. They still are expected to send over those proposals, so likely they will be reconsidering the regulations and the codes and working through it slowly, similarly to the way this county would do it.
And if you could, just at a high level, describe what were the concerns? Why did they that particular body hit the pause button from their perspective?
So the main concern was testimony received from Pepco about whether the grid, whether the DC grid could actually handle this change and how that would affect Pepco and homeowners as well as the commercial industry.
Councilmember Reamer.
Well, if my colleagues are interested, I know our Department of Permitting Services and our Department of Environmental Protection's building team has been very immersed in all these conversations and has followed the DC issues closely, and they could provide some insight onto what the consequences of that action was. So if you,
that'd be great.
With your support, I'll invite the executive branch team to join us. should just preface this by saying that over the past number of years, the council has added funding to our Department of Environmental Protection budget, and I suppose DPS as well, to build a team. And we have one of the most sophisticated building efficiency teams you're going to find in a local government anywhere. So we're glad you're here, and we'll ask for your comments, please, on this issue.
Just so I'm clear, you're asking clarification on what happened in D.C. recently?
Correct.
Okay. So from what I understand, and I'm still close with some of the colleagues that I work with down in D.C., as mentioned, the bill was already passed, and so... Sorry, my name is Brian Bomer. I'm the Sustainability Energy Mechanical Manager for the Department of Permitting Services. So, from my understanding, the bill requires, as Libu mentioned, adoption of not only electrification but also net zero energy requirements by 2026. Washington, D.C. is on a slightly different code cycle than we are here, so that it doesn't quite line up exactly the way that we're proposing it, but essentially they're expected to perform similar results as we are here in Montgomery County. They attempted to pass the electrification component early as to stagger the changes to the energy code with electrification and then net zero in the next code cycle. And from my understanding, there was some hesitation from the Code Approval Council, and so it was sent back to the appropriate groups to essentially take a look at and reconsider some certain components. They, as mentioned, are responsible for enacting this by 2026. So what they've essentially potentially done is stacked up two significant code amendments in one code cycle opposed to splitting it. And so we have a similar approach here. We are looking at the Climate Action Plan and requirements within the Climate Action Plan, and are trying to essentially stagger not only electrification but on-site renewables, net zero energy, along with increased energy efficiency, all outlined in the Climate Action Plan.
Thank you for that. One thing that the committee did an outstanding job incorporating the testimony of utilities, particularly early on. We actually happen to have utilities here. I do think it'd be a benefit for the full council to hear what the Fed committee had heard. And in light of the recent actions in D.C., we do have representatives from PEPCO here, so I think it'd be reasonable to have them come up and speak to, from their perspective, what transpired, and then would love to hear from DPS and Department of Environmental Protection to get your thoughts, with whatever it is that they mention.
Good morning, everyone. William Ellis, Region Vice President, Government and External Affairs for PEPCO. As it relates to D.C., again, the legislation was passed. I think from our perspective, we wanted to ensure that D.C. was aware that there are implications to passing policies, and I think our testimony stated that on the Montgomery County side as well. In D.C., we did perform a high-level study to assess what electrification would do to the overall readiness of the grid. Within that study, it stated that it is likely that all building electrification would increase load to similar levels that was seen in the past. But it did not address specifically the infrastructure requirements that we'll need at the local level. So we do anticipate that through electrification, there will be needed improvements to the grid, whether that is substation improvements, feeder improvements, et cetera, locally in order to supply all electric buildings at some point in time. That information we do not have at this time. Of course, for Maryland, the PSC issued a study requirement that is underway as we speak today. And we feel that that level of information will be needed to ensure that we can maintain resiliency and reliability of the grid, what infrastructure costs will ultimately be bared by our customers and ratepayers, as well as what improvements will be needed to make for the grid to be ready for this increased electrification. I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Councilmember Rice, followed by Councilmember Reamer.
So thank you, Mr. Ellis, for being here. Appreciate it. And I was just looking at an article because I was having a conversation with the Washington auto dealers not too long ago, and we're talking about the electrification of our car fleets and why it is that they were concerned about infrastructure supporting that as they continue to flood the market with electric vehicles, something that we all support. There were conversations about the grid and being able to handle electric vehicles and the rise in electric vehicles that we have. And the general notion was that, yes, the grid could accommodate the electric vehicles. My question is, when we get to adding continuous things to the grid and saying, if we answer in one vacuum and say, well, with electric vehicles we're fine, are we also fine when it comes to electric vehicles and electrification of buildings, restaurants, other kinds of things? Even if we're talking in the future, do we have the capacity to be able to do all of those things with the current infrastructure? And if not, who's going to pay for that infrastructure? And then how is that anticipated? How is that typically delved out when it comes to increases? And I'll just say, I know that when we had issues with the substation in Germantown that created huge reliability issues for my community in the Up County region, that was replaced. But I'm curious as to how those costs are then borne and spread out amongst individuals. Is it across the board? Is it for particular regions? All of those things are really important. I know I asked you a lot of questions, but it's really important for folks to understand. So.
Yes, Councilmember Rice, great questions. I'll first start by saying that as an engineer myself, I spent the first 10 years of my career what is called capacity planning. So we plan for the overall resiliency and reliability of the grid each and every year through our normal course of business. Electric vehicles, I would not say that the grid can handle it. We've seen even today through our own electric vehicle programs, there are at times where transformers need to be upgraded, feeders need to be extended in order to support electric vehicles. And we anticipate, and again, we don't know this specifically in terms of the localities and where exactly in neighborhoods and cities that those infrastructure costs will be needed, but undoubtedly there will be upgrades needed on our systems to handle whether that electrification, whether that is on the electric vehicle side or the new business side, and that's what we do each and every day. But at this time, I think where the study comes in and where the information is needed to ensure that we understand what is the cost that our customers will bear related to the infrastructure improvements that will be needed to handle these policy changes that we are enacting. And that's our first and foremost concern as we prioritize affordability and equity, ensuring that we're doing it, as you all have stated, pragmatic and measured, and that we have the information needed to ensure that our grid can be able to successfully accommodate these policies.
So it just sounds to me, and I'll turn back to you, Mr. President, because I know that we have a lot of questions and we've got a long day ahead of us, but we just have had this conversation with WSSE in terms of infrastructure that's not there, that needs to continuously be improved, and we continue to raise rates over and over again to our consumers to support it. And I'm not drilling down on you and saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that for us, we have to be understanding of all of these big picture items and bring them all together in terms of what the impact is on our community as a whole. And so it is concerning to me that we have these kinds of infrastructure needs that are in place, which will then result in additional fees to pay for that infrastructure, and then who's going to pay for it? And so I think that it is important for us to identify and say, and lay out a strategy for who's going to pay for this to ensure that some of our lowest income residents, those that are most at risk, can be protected from those kinds of increases that, you know, some who come and testify here at the council have said are, you know, concerning to them. But I will say this, that at the same time, I'm also concerned about the equity of how we do this as well. When you talk about upgrades of transformers and substations, typically those are found, some of those older units are found in some of our communities of color and lower socioeconomic status. So is there a plan for how we would then strategize where we invest those infrastructures first to ensure that that equity remains at the forefront? Is there something that's in place that says we'll go to this neighborhood, we'll go to this neighborhood, or is it just based on where Pepco is or where the community is? How are those kinds of decisions made?
From an infrastructure standpoint, our job is to ensure the safe, reliable, clean, and affordable electric grid system. And so if there are infrastructure improvements that are needed, we will make that regardless of the area that is needed to be done in, based on the load projections that we foresee. So our job is to ensure that each and every one of our customers, low to moderate income, seniors, you name it, have power to meet the policy decisions that you all have in front of you.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Reamer, followed by Councilmember Katz, and then I had a couple of follow-up questions myself. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Well, we have heard from the PSC, as our colleague from Pepco mentioned. The PSC has put out an RFP for a study on electrification, and that study is to be completed by the end of the year, right? And so we will know from the PSC's in Maryland's perspective what implications there are at a very high level this year. And our legislation requires the executive to send us a building code in 2025. So we will have years to consider the consequences of what is really an incremental change in the built environment and the demands for electric infrastructure. So there can be no question that we are going to have to transform the energy grid. Like, we have to do that. That is one of the most important public policy challenges that we face as a society. And that's going to require investment from the federal, state, and local governments. And it's going to be a complex challenge. I think what we need to do as a local government that seeks to provide leadership and action on climate is to say that this is the direction we need to go, so that studies begin to think through how to do it, not whether to do it, but how to do it. And I think that's really what the PSC is going to provide, is a path for how to do it. We don't know how to do it. That's not our job. We don't manage, regulate, or oversee the grid. But what we do, we can do, is say we want new buildings to be electric. And then that will contribute a small piece. There's a small piece. The bigger piece, of course, is the existing building infrastructure. And just as an analogy, no one is saying that we shouldn't have new cars be electric. No one would say that. That would sound crazy. Well, we should have new buildings be electric. It's the same thing. We're trying to shift the building sector and the transportation sector to electric. We know it has consequences. Those consequences need to be addressed. That's a state issue that the PSC is in charge of among many entities and layers. And we will have plenty of time to consider the results of a study. We'll have years to consider the results of a study. And then the council will have the final decision as to whether to enact this building code. And that decision will not be made for years. So I don't know if our colleagues at the executive branch have any additional comments on this specific point, but otherwise I'll pass it back to the council president.
Garrett Fitzgerald, State Climate and Energy Policy Manager with the Department of Environmental Protection. Just a couple of things related to things that Councilmember Rice and Councilmember Reamer have just talked about. So the Public Service Commission did decide earlier this year, because the Climate Solutions Now Act of earlier in 2022 directed it to do so, has launched a electrification study. It's a statewide study with a primary goal of developing recommendations for utilities to successfully serve customers under a managed transition to a highly electrified building sector between 2021 and 2031. There's a couple things that are important to understand about that study and about what we're going to learn from it, and about probably how it might apply to the decision you're making around Bill 1322. So the way I think of this, you could essentially do a study of the electric grid at a sort of a light version and a detailed version. This is the light version. Over time, as our friend from Pepco just said, over time, if we are to see a significant transition to electrification, both in buildings and in vehicles, where we have a lot more electric load, it'll be very important to do the detailed study. That will tell us location-specific information about where our grid upgrades needed, along with where our energy efficiency investments needed, where our demand response changes needed, so that if we're all going to have electric cars, they don't charge during peak time. They know to not charge when the grid is maxed, right? So over the next 10 to 20 years, as we transition in a significant way to electrification, we'll need to do that kind of detailed study. The study that's being done at the state level right now is a study that is due in September of 2023, so they have less than 12 months to do it. They've been talking scope the last few months. They've just put up the RFP a couple days ago to hire the consultant who will do this. So it'll develop high-level recommendations for the utilities. It won't answer the question for the utilities, are there any specific grid upgrades needed to be able to handle new construction requirement, like is considered in Bill 1322, to shift to electrification. When you think about what happens with Bill 1322 as it applies to new construction, this will apply to things that are going to be built anyways. All buildings here are built with air conditioning. Typical air conditioning that we install into our buildings is much less energy efficient than electric heat pumps. The high efficiency electric heat pumps reduce energy use by an order of magnitude. So right now in Maryland, our electric grid is maxed out in the summertime when everybody's running their air conditioners. If we help ensure that the next wave of buildings to be built in Montgomery County are using efficient heat pumps for their cooling need instead of traditional air conditioning units, we're helping the grid. So for the next bunch of years, this Bill 1322 is actually beneficial to the grid because it's reducing electricity use during the part of the year when we're worried about grid capacity. Over time, if enough of the building stock, and we're talking about a lot more than just what we'll see with new construction, if a lot of the building stock shifts to electric technology, the peak demands, the peak capacity of the grid will be reached in the wintertime when we're heating buildings with electric technologies. The state did a study last year, I believe, that a group called E3 had performed the technical analysis for, that predicted that we'll experience that in the 2040s. So we have some time to do, and we need to do, the kind of study to make sure that we understand what needs to happen to the grid so that as all of the building stock shifts to electric, we'll make sure that the grid upgrades are keeping pace and are able to make sure that we're able to successfully serve customers. But in the near term, when we're talking about the context of just affecting new construction, we're making buildings more energy efficient by doing this, which is more likely to actually help the grid during the peak. The last thing I'll say on that is, the studies that are being conducted now at a high level will, I think, look at some cost information. This is just looking at the cost of the electric grid. In Maryland, we are spending tens of billions of dollars in the next 10, 15 years under STRIDE to expand the natural gas infrastructure, which the General Assembly approved back in 2013. That, I think, is a whole separate issue, but the state is currently rapidly building natural gas infrastructure because that had been previously approved. The gas companies get to build this. The answer to who will pay for all this is all of us, because both with electric grid improvements and with gas system improvements, all of those costs end up being borne by the ratepayers for decades after the utilities build the infrastructure.
Thank you. I have a foundational question, and then I've got several colleagues in the queue. Just the committee's recommending, I believe, a method 2, correct? Is that accurate, Ms. Nadeau, in terms of oversight? Because Councilmember Reamer understandably referred to the next council will have the opportunity to review the analysis within this study, but could you describe that a little bit further? Because I don't believe we will be able to provide comment, but I don't believe under method 2 we would be able to, as a body, disagree with our colleagues in the executive branch if the council were to do so. Could you just describe a little bit of the difference between a method 2 and a method 1?
So currently in the bill, the regulations would be method 2. Under method 2, the council has 60 days to approve or disapprove the regulations. So you'd have to disapprove them. They'd get sent back to the executive, who would then have to retransmit them. One suggestion would be if you wanted more council oversight, you could do method 1, in which case regulation could not be approved without council approval. Council would have to say yes for that regulation to be adopted.
Gotcha. I just wanted to understand that distinction. I appreciate that. To respond to that directly, go ahead, Councilmember Reamer.
It's an important point. So, the council receives a draft regulation from the executive, and if the council doesn't like it, I've been part of this process many times. At the T&E committee, for example, we say, well, we don't want to approve this without that kind of a change. And the executive has to contemplate whether they want to try to override that point of view at the full council or send us a revised regulation. And so, in my experience, the executive branch says, well, looks like we better send a revised regulation. And so that's the way the process works. It's different than the legislative process, but it is still a process. It can be a process of negotiation if that's what the council is seeking. So the final authority to approve it is an absolute authority, and just keep extending it if you don't want to approve it. So, thank you.
Great. I've got Councilmember Katz followed by Council Vice President Glass, and then I have Councilmember for Adamus Wande, and then Councilmember Jawando, and then I have some questions that I'd like to ask as well. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Council President. And I want to congratulate the Fed Committee for their hard work. This is not easy, as we continue to hear. We are looking at the legislation on a jurisdiction by jurisdiction basis. What Washington has done, what others have done. How much of the grid is done on a jurisdictional basis? Pepco, how much is your grid multi-state, multi-area for electrification?
Thank you, Councilmember Katz. Our grid is interconnected across our jurisdictions. So I think to the point that you're getting at, that the policy decisions that we make in one jurisdiction, specifically in DC, does have a overlap in terms of the infrastructure that is needed in Montgomery County. We have a regional transmission authority, PJM, that oversees the interconnectionness at the transmission levels of our grid and how load flows in and out of Montgomery County, DC, Prince George's County, et cetera. So there are some interconnectedness in policies as it relates to the reliability of the grid.
And so how necessary would it be that we have the interjurisdictional discussions to solve this? Everybody's in agreement that this someday should be done. I don't know that anyone is saying it's not, whether it's from the industry or any place else. The question is the timing. And if the timing doesn't work, my mother used to say medicine is good for you, but if you take it all at once, it'll kill you. And that becomes the issue for this. That as much as we want to do it, as fast as we want it to get done, if it's not done in the proper time frame, then we're not helping each other. And it's when we build the additional capacity for the electric grid. How is that fueled? How is that additional capacity going to be fueled when you're building it? Is it still with the carbonization issues?
Great question. I will allow. I have a colleague here, Charles Washington from Baltimore Gas and Electric, and I know DEP also have comments that they want to make related to the current fuel structure within the state of Maryland.
I know you brought an expert with you. Charles, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Council Member? For the record, Charles Washington here on behalf of Baltimore Gas and Electric. Council Member, that's a good question. Under the current laws in Maryland, the utilities get our electricity from PJM, a regional grid operator. And what we see in the BGE service territory is if electrification were to move forward at a rapid pace, we would see up to triple the load requirements in our service territory. All that would still come from PJM. Today, there's a mix of fuels, some renewables, some nuclear, some coal, natural gas, etc. In order for Maryland to reach its goals, we will need to clean that generation stack over time. But today, we do see a good deal of fossil fuels providing electricity in our area.
And one last question, Mr. President. I know everybody else has questions too, but if you were able to build the additional capacity, if you were going to build the additional capacity, and I'm assuming that there's other regulations and federal regulations and regulations that we haven't thought about doing this, how fast could you build additional capacity if you could start today? And I know you're not starting today. I guess maybe you are in some cases, but.
So I can speak for BGE.
Yep.
And say, if I could just step back just one moment and say, BGE is committed to helping the state get to 6% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2031.
Can you say that number again?
60% reduction
60%.
by 2031 and net zero by 2045. And we appreciate that getting there will require significant electrification. That's going to require investments in our grid, and we're prepared to make those investments. Our principal concern with this bill is that it's not informed by any studies of Montgomery County's actual infrastructure. You'll hear discussions of a study in DC, people call it high level. You'll hear discussions of a study in Massachusetts or New York, but there's not been a low level, medium level, or high level study of what this will mean for the infrastructure in Montgomery County. And we think that's really risky. So will we make the investments? Sure, but we did a study, BGE did, for our total service territory. And what we found in that study is that a bill like this, multiplied across our entire jurisdiction, would require 250 new or expanded substations. 250. We currently have 200 substations. So we're talking about doubling. The poles and wires that you see come up and down your streets, we call those feeders. That would need to double as well. We can build that infrastructure, but it takes time. A substation normally takes between 5 and 10 years. And so, we want to do that work. We need to do that work. But here in Montgomery County, we don't know how many substations will be necessary. We don't know how many feeders will be necessary. And, I would describe the commission study as not a high-level study, but a medium-level study. High, medium, or low, those are all objective measures. So what I'll say is, what the commission is doing is looking at 6 different scenarios for electrification, and for each, including maximum electrification, electrifying everything you possibly can. And for each of those scenarios, they're forecasting or they're simulating the load for each of the utilities that are in scope, their peak load into the future. They're also forecasting how that load changes based on historical measures, energy efficiency, conservation, advanced technologies, really giving you the information you need to apply this to your decision making. And then, very importantly, as they're required to do by the law, they are going to help the utilities determine what investments need to be made to successfully serve customers into the future. And I think all of those pieces of information would be helpful to deliberate a policy like this. I'm concerned that you're heading into a potential vote on this, knowing nothing about the impact on the Montgomery County grid. And I think about some of the largest developments that are coming into the county. I won't start naming them, but I got a big list right here. We don't know at those local levels whether the utility that serves them will have the capacity to serve them when they go live. I think that's a risk, and that's really our concern. We're here to work with you. We want to do this. We think we need to do this. You can read our plan to do it. I actually included it in our comments. It's a link within the memo that we sent last night. But we really urge the council to wait for the Public Service Commission study that will give you at least informative information for this decision that's in front of you that affects every business and every household in this county.
Thank you. Can I ask, I had one more, and I said I was only going to do, on the discussion about the heat pump, that would actually help the grid rather than, do you agree with that?
So it's a complicated question. We think
every part of this is a complicated question.
It is. I think the chair of the committee, sponsor of the bill, made an important point. Today, BGE is a summer peaking utility. Policies like this will make us a winter peaking utility. And so, we really have to be thoughtful about the equipment we're installing. BGE believes to achieve this, the state's climate goals, we'll need to install 1 million heat pumps in our service territory, and we're going to propose a plan to do it, right? But we benefit from having done the study. We had E3, the same organization that did the state study what it would mean on our infrastructure. We then had an engineering firm come behind them and take all of that data and figure out what we need to install, right? Heat pumps will be necessary, council member, but you got to have the localized utility infrastructure to support it. And we're not saying it's not there. We're saying none of us know if it's there because no one studied it.
Thank you very much. I turn back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Just a quick time check. We still have a lot to get through this morning. We have to interview our Director of the Office of Human Resources, go through our resolution to amend council rules and procedures, and a number of other issues that we're going to try to get to before the 12:30 recess. So just would ask my colleagues to be judicious in their comments. I know there's a lot to get through here, but again, just a lot on the agenda today. So I go next to Council Vice President Glass, and then we have our Council Member for a day, Ms. Wande, Council Member Jawando, and then Council Member Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, everybody, for the conversation. So underscoring this entire conversation is the recognition that we're in a climate crisis, and that is what we are trying to mitigate, trying to bend the curve. And the curve here in Montgomery County is that 42% of our climate emissions comes from the transportation sector, and 52% of our climate emissions comes from physical infrastructure. That's what this bill is trying to tackle, trying to bend the curve on the 52% of emissions from buildings, namely to make sure that new buildings help bend that curve, right? And I just want to take a step back and try to understand and frame this conversation, because anytime where you try to make progress, there's a push and pull. And that is what we're engaging in, trying to understand what industry, what the utilities can accommodate with respect to where we know we need to go and the speed at which we need to get there. That's the tussle. And just like with fuel efficiency, right? When states and other jurisdictions started imposing fuel efficiency standards on cars, only then did the auto manufacturers start complying and building better cars and better engines. And so my general question, sincere question for the two of you and the sector that you represent is, one, a recognition of what is trying to be done here, and that the progress we've made has only been because of state, federal, and local jurisdictions pushing to do better, because that's the only option. And so how do you see us moving forward, recognizing that we need to move forward? Mr. Washington.
Sure. So we've laid it out in our vision for Maryland's clean energy future. I'll provide a copy to you, and I think that what we see is the need for integrated energy solution that will require a great deal of electrification with maybe some fuel backup. But the important thing that we're here to say today is not that you shouldn't move forward, right? That is not what we're saying. But we think that a prudent method is to understand the impacts of the decisions before we make them, so that we know what the impact will be when the decision is made. And so, it truly, I appreciate the spirit of your question. I appreciate it that it is sincere, and my answer is sincere because we put it in writing, and in February, we're going to propose a plan to start installing 50,000 heat pumps in existing buildings a year moving forward. But what it requires is an understanding of the engineering, the technical aspects, and that's what we don't have in Montgomery County. So we're not saying don't do this ever. We're saying September is just a few months away. Let's get the information that the General Assembly has mandated be provided to you to inform your decision.
And Mr. Washington, just wanted to follow up. I think you had said previously that my notes, there's the goal is for a 60% reduction by 2030. Is that correct?
2031.
2031. How did that come about? Was that because of state legislation?
That was, yes.
Okay. And that just accentuates the point that we need to continue pushing to get to the direction we need to go, and we need to push through roadblocks, and we need to have honest conversation about what those roadblocks are. But ultimately, we need to continue pushing forward.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Ms. Wande.
Hello. So my question is pretty broad, so I'll make it quick for time. But I just want to piggyback off some of the things that people have said. So an energy efficient society, cleaner energy, electric buildings, those are all a goal for our society, and it's very important. Sorry. Though for some people, healthy and clean in America in general, that correlates to expenses, or correlates to being pricey. So will people with higher wage be living in better environments, and with people with lower wage not be living in those better environments? And so, sorry, what I mean by that is I know that we're working on affordable power and energy. But as Ms. Nadeau had mentioned, there is a racial injustice, there is a communal injustice. So I do want to go back to William Ellis. You had mentioned to prioritize affordability and equity. With communal injustice and racial injustice, what communities will be targeted? What communities will be targeted first? How are you prioritizing this? Sorry, hold on.
That's a great question. I think you nailed it.
But also one more thing, because it was kind of scattered. But just communal injustice. How will these communities be targeted? And Mr. Fitzgerald, you had mentioned that all of us will be paying for it. For people with lower wage, will they be paying less than people with a higher wage in order to balance the commission? That was another one of my questions. So yeah, sorry, that was kind of all over, but that's...
You did a wonderful job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll start. I think you raised a very important question, one of the greatest questions of our generation that we'll have to solve. And the county has laid out that plan perfectly by saying we have to get to 100% decarbonization by 2035. We know that our black and brown minority communities are suffering the impacts of climate change more than any other population across the states. And so, as my colleague mentioned, as the county's mentioned, we have to take action. And what I mean by prioritizing affordability and equity is ensuring that we understand the financial implications to taking that action that only a study will be able to give us in terms of what is the rate increases that our customers will ultimately have to pay for the additional infrastructure that will be needed by enacting these policies. And and when enacting these policies, what programs, and I'll let DEP speak, what programs will supplement these policies that the council and DEP has already made aware for a lot of our customers today?
I can start. I mean, there's a couple different elements to this question about how all of this energy infrastructure ultimately becomes costs for all of us, and how we differentially experience those costs. The Public Service Commission, which is a state agency, is ultimately responsible for regulating the utilities, and they regulate the process by which customer energy rates are set. The utilities propose, here's how we plan, there's sort of the whole discussions around here's the infrastructure we think we need to build and how much it will cost us to do our business. And there's a whole separate conversation about what are the rates we will be charging our customers. The question I think is really interesting. Is it possible for the utilities to actually charge different customers different rates, perhaps based on household income, for example? I actually don't know. I would invite any comment from our utility colleagues whether that's a thing that they have ever done, have considered doing, could do under the way the Public Service Commission works. But just picking up on the last piece, there are, one of the things the county is always trying to do is advocating for various kinds of programs and operating programs ourselves that provide energy bill pay assistance, provide weatherization, energy efficiency improvement assistance for lower income households in the county and across the state. And that's a major priority for us. So in addition to all the conversation we have with the Public Service Commission about the electric grid and how do we make sure that grid investments are happening, we also spend a lot of time both within the Public Service Commission and with the General Assembly pushing for state policy change to try to actually make it more likely that more low to moderate income households in Maryland are able to experience the benefits of energy efficiency, which tend to be cost benefits, but also major health and quality of life benefits, and to make it cheaper to be able to make the energy improvements to the houses. I think my colleague might want to say a little bit more about what we do.
Sure, thank you. Lindsay Shaw with DEP. I'm sorry, I know that you're short on time. One thing, thank you again for bringing that up. It's a really important point, and one that was embedded in our climate action plan that was released in June of 2021. Every single climate action that was put into that plan has equity enhancing measures that the county needs to consider when we do things like this. I think it's a really good point. And there are companion programs that I think Will was setting me up for, so thank you, Mr. Ellis. So we do have Montgomery Energy Connection, and I always take the opportunity to talk about this program that was seeded with some Pepco Exelon starter funding, so thank you. But DEP and partners across the county run this great program to increase awareness of energy efficiency programs through the Empower Maryland program so that people do take more advantage of these programs. So again, MontgomeryEnergyConnection.org is a great resource for all members of Montgomery County to explore what opportunities are out there. And secondly, we are on the very small cusp of introducing our own RFP for electrification incentives. We have a pilot program that we've designed with the support of Rocky Mountain Institute, City of Tacoma Park, Habitat for Humanity Metro Maryland, the Montgomery County Green Bank. So we're working on expanding rolling out our very first pilot program focused on electrification incentives for residential homeowners and renters. So more coming soon, and I'm happy to come back and talk about that when we get to that point, but we're waiting patiently for that RFP to hit the street, so that'll be very exciting.
I'm sorry, one more thing. Thank you so much for that response. I hope that more awareness can be brought to these programs. That way everyone is aware about them. But my last question would just have to be, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
That's okay. Thank you, Ms. Monday. I've got Councilmember Jawanda, followed by Councilmember Navarro, and then I have, I'm going to have to submit my questions because we're not going to have time to get through them today, but Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you. And our Councilmember for a Day is adept at deep questions.
Yes.
And you're doing a great job. And the racial equity and social justice impact statement to our Councilmember actually is positive, said this would have a positive impact on racial equity because children are 42% more likely to develop asthma in homes with a gas stove, and many other reasons that we all know the kind of disproportionate impacts on communities of color and environmental justice issues. So we all agree on that, but just want to point the great work of OLO. Our sir from BGE, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name again.
Charles Washington.
Mr. Washington. The projection you made, because I think there's a core issue here that we should grapple with, like can the grid handle it or not? And we've heard different things from the dais, we've heard different things from, you cited some stats that I may ask you to repeat just quickly that I think are based off if everything went electric, all buildings, not the very limited scope of new construction and all the exceptions that we put in this bill. So could you speak to that? Because those numbers you cited, which were alarming, in my understanding, are if every building in Montgomery County was electric.
And you know, it's a fair question, council member, and it's even more mixed than that because I was talking about the BGE service territory.
Sure.
We only serve about 14,000 customers in Montgomery County.
Right.
Right.
I'm one of them, so
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So it's a good point, right? I was talking about the trajectory of policy, right? Because I think we're starting here. I don't think that we're saying that we're ending here. I think that everyone appreciates that there will be a significant degree of electrification into the future. And so, you know, kind of to the point of that PSC study where they looked at 6 scenarios, E3 recently did 3 scenarios for BGE, and one of them was the type of scenario where you electrify essentially everything you could. And the stats that I was quoting are built off
That scenario.
that scenario.
Got it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, you're a good advocate, because I think you scared people thinking that that's what we were doing here, which we're obviously not. So I just think that's important. The other thing is the timeline in the PSC study, and this is my last question, I'll yield. We made a decision in committee, to the chagrin of some, to allow an extra year from 2024 to 2025 before the executive even has to send the standards over to us, right? And now they could move quicker, but the council can decide that we need to take more time. But we allowed that. We're going to get that high level, as described by DEP PSC study next year. I'm sorry, this year, later this year. No, next year. Yeah, because this year's almost over.
2023.
Yeah. It's not 2023 yet.
I'm already halfway out the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Halfway.
So I just want to ask our DEP colleagues just to emphasize that point of that. And even when we get it, it's not going to give us all the information. This is going to be a continual information gathering, but that these standards under this bill are not required to be sent over to us until 2025 for this limited scope of new construction with a lot of exceptions. Can the grid handle that?
Yeah, Councilmember, that's exactly right. So we'll receive the study September 30th, 2023. We'll receive the study that the Public Service Commission is doing right now. It will likely say things like it's important for all of the utilities to also do more detailed studies to plan for the experience of a significantly larger amount of electrification. We, based on just the technical understanding of what happens in buildings and where peak demand is now, we don't expect to learn anything from the PSC study that would immediately affect the decision you would probably make around Bill 1322 as it applies only to new construction. But we're all going to learn a lot about what will be necessary over the next couple of decades to improve the electric grid to enable a much broader view of electrification. I would just add that something like Bill 1322, where you would be establishing very clear policy direction that we're moving this direction, I think will end up being very helpful to the utilities who will be making the case to the Public Service Commission that it's very important we actually invest more resources, ideally not just our corporate resources, in those more detailed studies of the grid so that we can get ahead of this larger question so we don't end up in the same situation as we come back and later talk about what if we rapidly accelerate electric vehicles or renovations to other buildings.
That's this chicken and the egg of we got to push. So, all right, thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the Fed Committee. I know you guys did a lot of work on this particular bill and also considered a lot of particular exceptions and timelines. And so I appreciate all the thoughtful effort. It reminds me of what Governor Newsom in California has done. Obviously, there are different strategies when we talk about legislation. You know, sometimes you just go out there and make a big statement and a big pronouncement, and then you have to work through the details to get it going. But you've made a statement and you have essentially shifted a paradigm. And so I think in that sense, it is important to begin this conversation and to be able to plant that flag. However, I also think that it's going to be important, and I know this is a tough balance, how do we, make this pronouncement, put these timelines in place while trying to understand and gather as much information as possible, because there are some significant issues that we also owe our residents some answers, right? And so this notion of the resiliency of the grid has always been a conversation. I remember, back in the day when we were having all these talks about Pepco and all of the reliability issues and all the storms and all of this. And so I think that we also have to be responsible in allowing a little bit of time to gather the appropriate information while we are moving forward with particular milestones. And so I appreciate that this is not an easy balance. I want to, before I ask Ms. Nadeau a particular question, but I also want to note that Ms. Wandi also did zero in on the issue of racial equity and social justice, which I'm so happy that we did pass that law
that I authored in 2019 because it requires these very thoughtful analyses. And I will say that the Racial Equity and Social Justice Impact Statement did note that the magnitude of the benefit is indeterminate when it comes to communities of color, since it will depend on how racial equity and social justice are centered in new building development and building decarbonization, since historically new development tends to favor high-income residents, white residents, and white-owned businesses. So there is a nexus to affordable housing and how the government, we can't skirt around this. Governments will have to subsidize whether it is continuing to provide affordable housing, and also if there are going to be increased costs to these residents. So we can't just pretend that this will not have a particularly tough and negative impact on our communities of color, because we are still grappling with the affordable housing issues. But I guess with large, and I know we're running, a bit out of time, maybe for next session, Ms. Nadeau, I would like to just make sure that, from your perspective as our analyst, is this sort of the best approach to plant the flag and say this is what we're going to do, but also build in sort of check-in moments for the next council to be able to evaluate and best then, if need to, amend how it's going to proceed. And I know that, the timeline has been moved, et cetera, but it sounded to me like even the PSC report or study is sort of high level. So to the extent that we can build into the legislation these moments where there could be check-ins to ensure that we are literally achieving what we're set to achieve, versus somehow, inadvertently causing more issues. And the grid resiliency, I guess, is the point where I'm most interested in making sure that we are being cautious in that space. So if maybe, either in writing or something, I didn't have the benefit of sitting through the Fed committee sessions, but I do appreciate that they were very thoughtful. If there are some other ways to make sure that there could be check-in moments for the next council to ensure that they can continue to move forward, but at the same time understand that there are very important implications related to this. The resiliency of the grid is paramount, and the last thing we would want is to have, concerns around rolling blackouts or things like that, which have been mentioned. So we need to work on both ends, but having the accurate information is going to be important, and being transparent with our residents around what the cost will be. I think it's also going to be important as we build that into this very critical direction that we have to definitely embark on, because climate change is absolutely real, and we are experiencing it every day. So so you don't have to answer now, but if you could just come prepared maybe for the next session or maybe in writing, that would be, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
I can definitely prepare a memo to send over to council members answering that question and exploring other options for checking in on the progress of this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll just say, in addition to that question, which I think is a really good one, and again, not having had the benefit of sitting through and not being an expert in this field, we're focusing exclusively on electrification, which is absolutely the goal, but we haven't talked about other renewable alternative energy sources such as bioenergy, hydrogen, or other options. So I would be curious as to what other jurisdictions' perspectives have been on that, and better understanding why we are putting all our eggs in that one very important and best basket. But are there other things we should consider within the legislation? And then I guess the last thing for now is I need to better understand the study. We've talked about sort of it's small, medium, that doesn't mean very much to me. And so I'd love to follow up directly in hearing from colleagues at the state level on what they anticipate the scope of that analysis will be, to confirm whether or not it really in fact will help. When we provide the potential for another check-in moment, is that really going to be beneficial or not? So I have a few other questions, but in the interest of time, I'll submit those to you directly, Ms. Nadeau, and I appreciate everybody's hard work on this. All right. So we are going to move on to the next item on our agenda, and I'll just note, colleagues, I know are about 45 minutes to an hour behind schedule. We will try to catch up. We now have introduction of bills. We start with expedited bill 3222, Department of Health and Human Services, structure and positions. The lead sponsor is myself at the request of the county executive. Ms. Wellens, if you could speak to this as briefly as possible, just to tee it up, and then it will have been officially introduced, that would be terrific.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. President. Yes, Bill 32-22, Department of Health and Human Services, Structure and Positions, has been requested by the county executive, and it would establish the Chief of Public Health Services as a non-merit position in the Department of Health and Human Services, eliminate the Chief Operating Officer as a non-merit position in DHHS, and remove the requirement that the county health officer also serve as the chief of the direct service division for public services. And I believe, and I believe it's the next council is when we will have the public hearing. In addition, Mr. President, just to note that there is some companion regulations that go along with this, which we have not yet received. They're pending in the county register right now, and the executive will send them over in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wellens. And so Bill 3222 is now officially introduced, which takes us to the next bill for introduction, which is Bill 3322, Capital Improvements Program Affordable Housing Feasibility Study Required. Lead sponsor is Councilmember Friedson. I'll turn it over to him to just provide some context for this bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm really excited to be putting this bill forward. Just to note for colleagues, I've been discussing the idea of bringing this forward for several months. We've been working on it. I just want to note Ms. McCartney Green for her work and appreciate all of her efforts, along with Mary Geis and Cindy Gibson in my office and the executive branch who we work collaboratively with to try to move forward. The goal here is to strengthen the existing requirement for the executive branch to assess the viability of co-location of affordable housing with new or significantly renovated county facilities. We had a robust discussion related to one particular project, the Chevy Chase Library project, and I think we had a healthy debate on that, but we all acknowledged that we were very late in that process. And consistently, that is the challenge that the council faces, is by the time we are having these discussions at the council, we are well into the game. And the reality is we can't solve our housing crisis unless we maximize the full potential of co-locating public facilities and housing on county-owned properties. This won't solve everything, but it is one of the many tools in our toolkit that we have to take advantage of if we're going to be serious about tackling this crisis. And I share the frustration that many of us have with missed opportunity after missed opportunity with the co-location of housing on county property. We know that our land is scarce and that we have to aggressively pursue each feasible project as they present itself. So this bill would ensure that we consider co-location of housing and that it gets a fair review and a thorough review at the council, and that we're working collaboratively like we do very well on transportation related projects where there is a check-in process throughout. The intent of the bill is to establish a transparent checkpoint with the executive after the study for feasibility of housing is completed, which would increase accountability and allow for examination of all available information and data by the council at a time when we can still realistically impact the outcome. Specifically, the bill requires an affordable housing feasibility study prior to facility planning, development of the program of requirements, site selection, or land acquisition. We learned from our conversations with the executive branch that by the time the capital project and housing assessment are included in the capital improvement program for council consideration, it's more often than not very late in the process. Challenges that could have been addressed earlier become seemingly insurmountable, and the end result is almost always no housing on county-owned property. By requiring submission of the study to the council earlier in the process and by formalizing and institutionalizing that process, this would provide an opportunity for a thorough review in which the council can indicate whether or not it agrees or disagrees with the executive's determination of whether co-location of housing is feasible. So the executive could come forward, support affordable housing as part of the project, and the council could agree, and it would move forward in the CIP. The county executive could note that it does not support housing as part of the project, and present that to the council. The council could note that it does, and the county executive would have to come forward with a new scope of a project that includes affordable housing, and would have the opportunity, would still be in control of the process to do that. Or the county executive could come forward to the council, demonstrate that housing is not feasible on a county-owned property for a variety of reasons. The council could agree, and it would move forward through the regular process. The bill also includes a waiver provision if the council determines at some point later on in the process that circumstances have changed, and whether it requires an emergency appropriation or would result in further delay and not be in the best interest of the public, the council could waive the requirement moving forward. So I will just note that this is timely for two reasons. One, it's one of our last meetings, and this council has done more on affordable housing than just about any other council in the history of the county. There's a lot more work that we acknowledge that we need to do, and this reflects that. And it also is the issue that our council member for a day highlighted so poignantly early on, and raises as such a critical issue. So I'm really pleased and proud to move this forward, and appreciate everybody's efforts on this issue as well. I'll yield back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Full disclosure here, I've just gotten 24 text messages in the last 45 seconds, and so I am totally lost on who is in the queue, and I am looking forward to this microphone system being implemented as quickly as possible. So I apologize, colleagues. I don't know who is in the queue currently. I see that I got a text message from Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Navarro, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Well, first, I want to thank Councilmember Friedson for introducing this bill that strengthens a bill that we actually did adopt previously. I was a lead sponsor of that bill because it is so important to make sure that we are constantly studying the feasibility of co-location for not just affordable housing. We also worked on co-location for child care centers. And so anything that strengthens that process, I am a huge fan. I think that we also need to keep in mind that there are times when particular, affordable housing or residential components are proposed, and then for some reason the financing doesn't work, such as it happened in the Wheaton redevelopment, where we actually did own the land, not necessarily the building, but that was supposed to have affordable housing attached to it. And so I think that hopefully this will allow for a little bit more teeth in terms of these types of proposals that somehow magically the financing, when it's time to build, doesn't work, and perhaps then we have to go in there and try to rescue that. But I absolutely agree today, like I did in the past councils, when we believe that, yes, we must look at co-location because our land is very scarce, and it is important for us to leverage our public facilities. So thank you, and please add me as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer?
So I'd be added as a co-sponsor, and thank the council member for bringing this forward.
Councilmember Katz?
Thank you. I, too, would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Okay. Councilmember Rice?
Me too.
All right. I believe I'd like to be added as well. So let's thank you. And Ms. McCartney Green, I think Councilmember Friedson pretty much nailed it. Anything to add?
No, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That bill is now introduced. We now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Expedited Bill 3422, Streets and Roads, Classification of Roads. The lead sponsor is myself. Ms. Wellens, if you could tee this one up.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is in many ways a corrective measure. It builds upon the recently enacted Bill 24-22 Complete Streets, which is scheduled, has been enacted and signed by the executive. It's scheduled to go into effect in February 2023. Council staff, working with other departments, subsequently learned that there were some omissions from the lists of proposed town centers. Therefore, this bill will correct that oversight and make sure that everything is included. And it is scheduled for review by the incoming council on December 6th, along with a public hearing on that same date, in order to make these corrections as soon as possible so that they can go into effect simultaneously with Bill 24-22. Thank you.
Thank you. So that bill is now officially introduced as well. That takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is the call of bills for final reading. We start with Bill 2722, Administration, Inspector General, Powers and Duties. Ms. Wellens, if you could tee this one up as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill was introduced by the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee at the request of the Inspector General, Ms. Lamarzi, who is here should the council have any questions for her. The bill modifies requirements regarding the removal of the Inspector General to update those requirements, given that the council is moving from 9 to 11 members, modifies requirements regarding projected budget of the Inspector General, and does, in general, clarifies some of the powers and duties of the Inspector General, particularly regarding subpoenas, strengthens the subpoena power of the Inspector General, and also deletes just some outdated provisions of the Inspector General law. Since it was introduced by the GO committee, it did not then separately go to committee, so it does require a motion to move it forward before the roll call. Again, Ms. Lamarzi is here should you have any questions for her. Thanks.
Thank you. I should have turned to Councilmember Navarro as our GO chair first, so apologies, Councilmember Navarro.
No problem. I think Ms. Wellens did a really good job in summarizing what the GO committee introduced. Again, it's just really almost like a cleanup measure, and I appreciate Ms. Lamarzi sending it over. And with that, I would like to move it.
Thank you. Okay, and there's a second. And then Councilmember Friedson wanted to make some comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge first Ms. Lamarzi and all of the work of the Office of Inspector General. We thank them and acknowledged all of their work in the history of the office here at this body, and just wanted to lift that up here once again. We really put this forward on behalf of the Inspector General in order to clarify some of the changes in state law and in the county charter and make sure that it's reflected and appropriate. And I wanted to acknowledge, similarly to the work of the body on behalf of affordable housing, I think the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, this is an appropriate bill to be approving here at our penultimate council session of this term, and really wanted to thank Chair Navarro for all of her work. Our committee in these last 4 years has done a tremendous amount to strengthen oversight, noting that our only currency in public service is public trust, and at the heart of public trust is accountability and transparency, and the Office of Inspector General is at the heart of that. And we've funded this office, we have strengthened this office, we have given additional powers to this office, and this bill is really just the latest in what has been an annual tradition over the last 4 years, and builds on the work of the committee prior to my service here that Chair Navarro has done, and that Councilmember Katz has partnered with her on. So I just wanted to thank them for their work, and just note that I'm very much looking forward to supporting this bill and continuing our efforts here at the council in the next term, and making sure that the Inspector General has the resources needed and the powers provided in order to provide the public with the level of trust that we need to do our job and to do the work on their behalf. So with that, I'll yield back to you, Mr. President, with gratitude.
Thank you so much. I very much associate myself with all of those comments. I want to thank Councilmember Navarro for her ongoing leadership as chair of the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, and thank Ms. Lamarzi in particular for her and her team's work. So we have a motion and a second. I don't see any other discussion. We can go to the roll call vote.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Katz votes yes. Mr. Jawando?
Yes.
Mr. Jawando votes yes. Mr. Reamer? Yes. Mr. Reamer votes yes. Ms. Navarro?
Yes.
Ms. Navarro votes yes. Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Rice votes yes. Mr. Friedson?
Yes.
Mr. Friedson votes yes. Mr. Glass?
Yes.
Mr. Glass votes yes. Mr. Albornoz?
Yes.
Mr. Albornoz votes yes.
Let the record show that passes unanimously among all those present and virtual. We now move on to our next bill, call a bill for final reading, Expedited Bill 2122, Weapons, Firearms in or near places of public assembly. I will yield to the chair of our Public Safety Committee and request that I be put in his queue immediately after he speaks on this important topic.
In fact, if you'd like, you can be the first in the queue, because this certainly was a bill that you did a wonderful job in shepherding it through. This bill, Bill 2122, is based on it was based on the fact that the Supreme Court decided that we needed to change the law that we had already passed. It's based on Bruin, the Supreme Court decision, and it prohibits the possession of firearms in or near places of public assembly, which we had already enacted, with certain exemptions, and we needed to come back and clarify that it would fit within the Supreme Court's decision. I also want to publicly thank Ms. Wellens, who certainly has done tremendous work on this. This bill basically makes certain that there's a state preemption, there's exceptions, there's can't be within 100 yards of in a park, church, school, public building, or other public places of assembly. It lists out a place of public assembly and where they might be. There's a severability clause. It does everything that we believe is necessary so that we can be in alignment with the Supreme Court. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Council President.
Thank you very much, Chairman Katz. So it's sad that we even have to introduce this bill. The decision that was made by the Supreme Court earlier this year and then unilaterally adopted without any coordination with local jurisdictions by our governor is a step backward. Just in the last 24 hours, and my colleague, Councilmember Friedson, is wearing UVA-colored tie today because of the incident that happened recently, just last night, in which 3 lives were taken senselessly. And just last night here in Montgomery County at Clyde's, there was a fight that escalated in large part because somebody had a gun and now somebody is dead. And there are countless numbers of incidences here locally and regionally and nationally that are continuing to underscore the importance of the notion that more guns is not the answer. And so we went as far as we could go, given the parameters that have been laid out as the precedents that has now been set in making it increasingly difficult for local jurisdictions to keep our own residents safe. As was noted, and the argument has been made that more policy is not the solution. Well, I'll note that of the guns confiscated by our police department, more than 928 so far this year alone, the majority of them come from outside jurisdictions. Jurisdictions that have lesser restrictions on being able to access firearms than here in Montgomery County or in our state. As the parent of 4 children, this is not the world that I want my kids to be growing up in. But we're going to do everything we can, and we want to assure our county residents that this remains the highest possible priority in keeping everyone as safe as possible. And I want to note that our colleagues in the General Assembly will be taking up this piece of legislation as well, as the state of New York had to, and are going to be looking to see what we've done here in Montgomery County as a precedent for what will be done across the state, but we felt we could not wait. And so that is why we are here today. That is why we were not able to include everything that we wanted to, because prior to the Supreme Court's action, any area of public assembly, you would not have been able to bring a concealed weapon even with the permit. But that, unfortunately, is no longer the case. So we, again, went as far as we could go. I wish we could have gone farther, but I appreciate my colleagues' support for this and their leadership in this very important space as well. So with that, I'll yield to, or Councilmember
I
Jawando.
don't know whether Ms. Wellens.
Ms. Wellens, and then I'll go to colleagues.
Thank you. I don't have anything to add. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Well said, Mr. President. I'll be very brief. I was driving my daughter to school this morning, and she's, unfortunately, something came on the radio talking about the murders in UVA and at University of Idaho, and obviously you mentioned the Clydes here locally, and she said, well, you're allowed to have guns at places like that? And I said, unfortunately, policies around the country are different, and we have good laws here, and this is an example of another one. But to your point, 12-year-old child knows that that's not right, that we don't need more guns than people. You shouldn't be able to carry them in all these places. You don't need high-capacity magazines, all the problems that are contributing to this death that is unacceptable. So I want to thank you for your leadership, thank the Public Safety Chair, and all my colleagues, because we're all co-sponsors of this. This is a step we have to take, and we urge more at the state and federal level. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, I'll be brief as well, but wanted to express my appreciation. I appreciate you noting the unfortunate situation that happened in Friendship Heights. And these issues escalate when there are guns involved. There's just no doubt about that. And we are limited here at the County Council, as you noted. We are limited at the local level. We wish we could do more, but we have to do everything within our power to keep our community safe. And this is... it's not a global issue. We've talked about the housing crisis. We've talked about the climate crisis. Those are global challenges that we are trying to grapple with here at the local level. This is a uniquely American problem, uniquely to this country, that is not a challenge like it is here in other places around the world. And this national problem is a local problem that puts our residents at risk every day. I think this bill will help move us in the right direction, but hopefully it's also a call to action for those at the federal level and for voters, because we need to put in place changes at the federal level to really make sure that the actions that we're taking here locally can be amplified at the state and federal level to truly keep our communities safe. So I appreciate your leadership, Council President. I really appreciate colleagues for your work on this, and it is a sobering vote that I think all of us will be taking on this bill, but it's an important one and one that I take very seriously, and so I appreciate all the work that's been done here.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson. Councilmember Wande would like to speak.
So as a student at MCPS, that is something that's always on my mind, in the back of my mind, like, gun safety, weapon safety. And so feeling safe in your community also plays a role into trust in your community, trust in your council members, trust in the higher people that they will take care of you and be safe. So I do believe that this is an issue that needs to be called to action immediately, because we should be able to feel safe and trust, that we're in the hands of the correct people, which I know we are. So, but yeah, so definitely a call to action, and it shouldn't take another incident in order to fix it. So yeah.
Well said. An important perspective. We have a Public Safety Committee recommendation, so we can go straight to the roll call vote.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Katz votes yes. Mr. Jawando?
Yes.
Mr. Jawando votes yes. Mr. Reamer? Yes. Mr. Reamer votes yes. Ms. Navarro?
Yes.
Ms. Navarro votes yes. Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Rice votes yes. Mr. Friesen?
Yes.
Mr. Friesen votes yes. Mr. Glass?
Yes.
Mr. Glass votes yes. And Mr. Albornoz?
Yes.
Mr. Albornoz votes yes.
Let the record show that bill passes unanimously. We move on to Bill number 3921, Taxation, Public Safety Officers, Public Safety Emergency Communications Specialists, Property Tax Credit. As established, the Government Operations and Public Safety had a joint committee session and recommends enactment with amendments. I'll turn it over to the Chair of our Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Katz, followed by Councilmember Navarro, the Chair of our GO Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And once again, we thank Ms. Wellens for her fine work on this and helping us through the packet. It was a 5-0 committee recommendation. The reason it was not 6-0 is I'm a twofer. I'm on both the government. If I could have voted twice, I would have. The background on it is that the General Assembly authorized the counties to enact a property tax credit for certain public safety officers in Maryland. It would establish a property tax credit. At our first work session, it was noted, and our union partners were certainly in agreement with it, but they said that this should be part of collective bargaining. So therefore, we held it back. We waited for to wait for an executed MOU from the executive and each union that represents the employees. The committee also requested an updated fiscal impact statement to accompany it. Following the first public safety work session, the executive did enter into two MOUs, one with the FOP and the IAFF, the firefighters and McGeo, and that was in March, and the other with the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. That it includes, so therefore this bill includes deputy sheriffs beyond the group that was first in it, and it also added deputy sheriffs, correctional officers, and volunteer firefighters and volunteer EMT. And it was a 5-0 vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chair Navarro?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilmember Katz and the members of the Public Safety and Government Operations Committee. He described our deliberations accurately. Also, of course, this is something that I know the council has discussed previously in terms of us doing whatever we can to attract and retain our employees, especially those first responders, and how important it is to be able to provide. This is just one tool to be able to provide and facilitate their ability to live here in Montgomery County, which is so important. That way they can be so familiar with the community, vice versa. So I want to thank the General Assembly for allowing us to do this, and happy to have voted for it.
Thank you very much, Chair Navarro. So I'd like to thank virtually wherever he is, Councilmember Hucker, for working with me in our office on this piece of legislation. I was proud to be one of the lead sponsors and appreciate all of my colleagues who co-sponsored this measure. As has been noted by colleagues, the issue of recruitment and retention within our first responder positions is critical. And the fact that over 60% of officers are eligible for retirement right now within Montgomery County Police, and the small number of classes that we have coming in to replace the large number of officers that are retiring is going to create a very significant imbalance that will put us all at risk. So we must take measures like this to help do what we can to incentivize being employed here in Montgomery County. I'll note that our colleagues in Howard County have already implemented this with a great degree of success. And I'll note also the best practice that it is to have first responders live in the communities that they are responsible for helping to oversee. It creates relationships, it creates trust, and we know how expensive Montgomery County is to live in. And the last thing I'll note, because it has been brought up several times over the course of the deliberation of this important discussion, is that this does not mean that all of the other positions that have become first responders, especially since the beginning of the pandemic, our teachers, our social workers, our nurses, so many other key professions that are also struggling with recruitment and retention, are not equally as important. They are. And we encourage our colleagues in the General Assembly to look at creative ways to provide the opportunity for us at the local level to provide a similar incentive to those other key positions in other categories. But for now, this is an important step forward, and I was proud to work with all of my colleagues on this. I don't see any other comments, and so we have a joint committee recommendation here as well, and so we can go straight to the roll call vote.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Katz votes yes. Mr. Duando?
Yes.
Mr. Duando votes yes. Mr. Reamer? Yes. Mr. Reamer votes yes. Ms. Navarro?
Yes.
Ms. Navarro votes yes. Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Rice votes yes. Mr. Friedson?
Yes.
Mr. Friedson votes yes. Mr. Glass?
Yes.
Mr. Glass votes yes. Mr. Albornoz?
Yes.
Mr. Albornoz votes yes.
All right, let the record show that passes unanimously among all those present and virtual. Great, we move on to the next item on our agenda. We want to ask Ms. Anderson to come forward, as well as our Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Madalino. Just take a point of privilege here. I've had the opportunity to work directly with Ms. Anderson over the course of a number of different years. And she has some friends in the audience. So again, point of privilege, Parker Hamilton is in the house. So our longtime former director of libraries and a trusted friend and former colleague in the previous administration. So Ms. Anderson, you have a great fan club here in the audience. I see many others. Kathy Matthews is here as well, formerly the administration. Thank you, Kathy. And so, and of course, we have current officials here within the almost within the Elrich administration here as well to support you. So I'll start with our Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Madaleno, to make some opening comments, and then I'll go through the logistics of the questions I'll ask Ms. Anderson. Mr. Madaleno.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the council. I don't know if I should say anything more with your introduction of Ms. Anderson. I want to first thank you all for taking up this nomination right now because of its importance to the continued operation of the county government. When the county executive tasked me with finding a new director for OHR, we wanted to find someone who had experience within the county and ideally someone who had experience on both sides of the OHR ledger, both working in OHR and understanding that operation, the rules, the regulations, the laws, and the people that operate within OHR, as well as someone who was a client of OHR. And I think, as you well know, Mr. President, no county agency actually hires more people on an annual basis than the Department of Recreation. So because of all the seasonal employees, part-time employees, and so therefore no one has the experience that Tracy Anderson has. 20 years an employee of not only the county government but our partner agencies at MCPS and the Park and Planning Commission. She is uniquely qualified for this role at this moment. I am so excited to have her joining the administration, and I urge you all to confirm her, which I hopefully you will, as quickly as possible, because I think she will be a great asset to the county government, to all of you, as you also hire individuals. I hear that from Ms. Michelson on a regular basis on your behalf, so we are very excited to have Tracy Anderson joining us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Madaleno, and welcome, Ms. Anderson. The way this works is I've got a series of questions that I will ask you, and then my colleagues will have an opportunity to ask their own questions after you have the opportunity to answer these. So the first question is, what do you believe is the key role of the Office of Human Resources, and how, as a director, would you advance that objective?
Mr. Albanose, before I answer that question, I'd like to take a tiny point of privilege and recognize my husband and daughter, Caitlin and Clinton Anderson, in the audience, my friend and mentor, former library director Parker Hamilton, my friend, good friend and colleague Kathy Matthews, the former regional director, Sonetta Newvell, who was formerly on the county executive staff, my first manager in the county, Sean Davis from HHS, and his wife, Melissa Davis, and my current boss in the county, the hardest working director in the county, Robin
Amen.
Riley.
Yes.
Until now.
Yeah.
Until now. So the
Council president, a director? I mean, I'm just asking. Now, I guess.
So I believe that the primary responsibility of the Office of Human Resources is to provide a ready and well-fixed pool of employees to provide critical services to county residents. We can't miss that part of the equation. The residents are in the middle of the circle. Employees wrap around that. We can't manage our way out of anything if we don't have a supply of resourceful employees. As the director of Human Resources, I would tag on to 2 or 3 things. One is to build pipelines and networks with our partners in this community to identify employee resources. Where are we looking for employees right now? How is our department recruiting, searching for pipelines for new employees? I would like to re-engage with our current employees to look for ways to reignite their energy and their passion for their work. I remember when I first started working, there was 1 or 2 managers who really just gave me a chance to do something different. I was hired for one thing, but to learn other things, I was given the sort of autonomy to volunteer in other areas and learn a discipline. How are we growing and retaining our employees. And the last thing I'd like to do is really take some time as a part of my onboarding process to engage with the current employees in human resources, directors, and hiring officials throughout the county to find out what their needs and pressures are. One thing that I can say, and I'll build on what Mr. Madaleno said, as a customer of human resources and as a former employee there, I sort of know where the pressures are. Nobody could have told me that we would have gone through a pandemic, had to redeploy staff resources in recreation where we couldn't open facilities. The big business in rec during the pandemic was pools. But that meant that we had 40 buildings, almost 40 buildings, where employees did not have the opportunity to do critical work. And those staff stepped up and volunteered to work in other places. They had to learn on the fly in a lot of ways. But what would it look like if we already had a pipeline to training and building a nimble and resourceful workforce that could just stand ready without a whole lot of concern to put them in new places? The staff in human resources, I've spoken to several of them. I know several of them personally. I know that they have been challenged. Human resources is not a sexy part of the government. We don't have a bus. We don't have a new building to unveil. But it's the critical infrastructure of the county. If we can't hire and can't hire quickly, if we can't compete in this region, we won't make it. And I know that they stand ready to support the new work.
Thank you, and thank you for acknowledging all of the folks in the room, especially your family. So appreciate you saying that. The next question is, please tell us about your experience ensuring compliance with and knowledge of federal, state, and local labor laws.
I'm very familiar with the county's personnel regulations, the Federal Labor Standards Act, all of the sort of compliances that go along with human resources. I have conducted EEO investigations. I'm very familiar with that process. I work collaboratively with the Office of, the County Attorney's Office, with the Office of Labor Relations, and with the employees' unions. One of my previous positions, I was the labor team chief for a period of time, and I worked very well with the other unions. So I'm very familiar with the regulatory environment that we operate in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Since COVID, employers across the country have faced challenges with recruiting, hiring, and retention. What thoughts do you have on how the county government can improve in these areas, and how would you use technology to manage and advance change?
Thank you for that question. So just as you mentioned, we're not unlike many, many organizations across the country and in this region. We're competing with Fairfax and Howard County and DC and other locations for the same pool of employees. But what I do think that the county has missed on a little bit is that there's not a coherent strategy around recruitment. What do we want our employees to look like? What do we want them to experience? And then when we bring them here, what do we need our employees to know and be able to do to accomplish their work? So our customers are many, not only our community residents, but our employees, our past employees, our current ones, and our future ones. What environment are we bringing in? So I would say that one of the ways to do that, I've seen the District of Columbia and some others do virtual hiring fairs where they're able to provide instant offers, contingent offers for those jobs. I want to find out what the barrier is for us doing those types of things here. Are we able to bring employment fairs into communities where employees are underrepresented? And can we do those instant offers there? We don't need to have people waiting for inordinate periods of time to know, I've applied for the job, now I have to wait 6 months to find out if I'm eligible, and then another 6. I'm over-exaggerating, but that's sort of the space that we're in. And I know that the staff in human resources feel that keenly. They're very aware that they're perceived as a gap, and maybe it's our systems that need to be perfected and fixed, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'd also like to thank you all, because I understand that this new recruitment tracking software is in the selection process, and I have you to thank for bringing that aboard for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next question is, if appointed, how would you position this role to work on racial equity and social justice issues? What experience do you have in incorporating racial equity and social justice analysis into an organization's decision-making?
Thanks for that question. As an employee at MCPS, part of my role as the assistant to the associate superintendent, and the Office of Student and Family Support and Engagement was to bring on a restorative justice component. As part of that work, we did a lot of training and support for principals and students and families in schools. We had a system where we monitored disciplinary actions to see where there needed to be some just-in-time training to improve those outcomes, so that disciplinary actions, academic attainment, all of those things should be consistent and unknowable in respect to race, ethnicity of the student. That's the sort of perspective we want to bring here. I would partner with our Ms. Ward's office in racial equity and social justice. I would work with our partners throughout the region to develop a program of services that provided good outreach to underrepresented communities, and to make sure that we were counting our not in a quota sort of way, but to examine where are our residents, what the percentage of our resident population is in comparison to what our employee representation is, and to figure out how to bridge that gap.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you.
Next, how will you work to, let's see, make sure I'm asking the right question. Yes, how will you work to recruit employees who represent the county's diversified demographics, including those with diversified language and cultural competencies, different ages and generational perspectives, and those with physical or other disabilities?
So I'd like to build on what I've seen as the public health model, the education model, human service model of outreach. I know that public health some time ago visited barbershops to encourage African American men to have colonoscopies and other sorts of screening. Wouldn't it be great if we could do some of those things? Where are the people gathering in our community? Where are the town squares, and how are we approaching in those areas? So I would reach out to community outreach teams, to our public school partners, our educators in the region, and identify where people gather, those places in the county like East County that are underserved. Are there job opportunities there? Look for ways to take sort of the veil off of recruitment and to be out where people are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the last question is, are there any conflicts of interest of which we should be aware?
No.
Thank you so much. So
Thank you.
just a comment, and then I'm going to tee it up to the chair of our Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, Councilmember Navarro, and just underscore a few things that you said, Ms. Anderson. I think the Director of Office of Human Resources is the most important position in county government. And all of them are important, but all of them go through and out of our Office of Human Resources. And so not only are you helping with recruitment and retention, but you're also helping to facilitate challenges that come when there's conflict within the workplace, which can often be complex. And we have great partners in labor who are just very important stakeholders to this ecosystem that makes Montgomery County so unique, but frankly strong as well. And so I want to thank you for your public service and leadership and your willingness to step forward today. It's a critical job, and I personally think you're up for the task. But I'll turn it over to Councilmember Navarro to make her own comments, and then to Council Vice President Glass, who's next in the queue, followed by Councilmember Rice.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Ms. Anderson. It's so great to listen to your responses, and obviously your background is just exemplary, and I think it would be a great fit for this position. It has already been mentioned that obviously this is such a critical position in our county government, and I, as chair of GO for so many years, we have worked on different ways to try to address and in reality bring up to date particular classifications or particular amendments to regulations, et cetera. And I think that's going to be really important going forward, because the work that we have done around making sure that we can fill the positions that are critical, but also the work around racial equity and social justice as the county continues to become more and more diverse is going to be important. However, the feedback that we have received at times is that it is very difficult to get into county government. And we learned during the pandemic when we came together to address the issue of the impact of COVID in the African American community and the Latino community, that there were particular positions such as the promotores, the promoters of health, et cetera, who were very effective. And so I see this sort of new chapter in Montgomery County's leadership aligning with a lot of other complex issues, and this position is going to be key. So, not so much as a question, but more of a comment and an observation that with the new chair of the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, that I think it would be important to begin deliberations around what are our classification, what are our requirements, what exactly is it that we are doing to perhaps facilitate folks in the community that would be great employees for them to have access to those positions, because they have proven that they can really do great things, and especially serving our diverse communities. And also the issue of expediting the hiring process, that obviously is always a challenge. And so I just, more for my colleagues as well, that are coming back, and for you to make sure that, that we give you the capacity that you need, but that also once you get in there, to take with fresh eyes, do an assessment of how could the county be a little bit more innovative and nimble in attracting and retaining the best possible employees to serve our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro. Council Vice President Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Ms. Anderson, for being here and for your work throughout Montgomery County, from working with department agencies, working with MCPS, and working with the Park and Planning Commission. That is a local trifecta. And so you clearly know how this community operates. You know the people, and I know you're going to do an incredible job once we confirm you. And I just want to use this as an opportunity and add one more thing to your plate. You talked about recruitment and trying to figure out the best ways to recruit the best people throughout this region to work for and serve the residents of Montgomery County. Our residents demand a lot, and I know that's not lost on our workforce, and so sometimes it makes things a little difficult or tricky, but we got to do it, and I appreciate the ideas that you had. And one more way that we can attract the best is by paying them fairly. And that is why the very first piece of legislation I introduced 3.5 years ago was the Montgomery County Pay Equity Act. Because when I got to this office, I looked at the numbers and realized there were real discrepancies with how we were paying our workforce. One case in point, in the Department of Health and Human Services, there were 13 people who all had the same job in HHS, 1 man and 12 women. And that man got paid more than all 12 women, and in one instance got paid more than $30,000 than the lowest paid woman. That's not fair, and that's not right, and that's why I introduced that legislation, because here in Maryland and across the country, wage gaps continue. And the reason I share this with you is because in that legislation, it calls for the executive department, namely the Office of Human Resources, to provide a report on how we are doing with our workforce and making sure that we are paying everybody fairly. And that legislation says that a report is due every 2 years, on or before July 1st, and the last date was July 1st, 2022. There was a lot going on this July and in the spring, and this position has been vacant for a while. And so I had not pressed, and I'll turn to Mr. Madaleno, but the reality is I waited patiently. And now I'm looking forward to engaging to make sure that this legislation is doing what it's intended to do. And if we find out that it is not doing everything that needs to be done, we'll take another look at it. Mr. Madaleno, any comments from you or Ms. Anderson?
We will get that report to you now that we have leadership at OHR in order to accomplish this task, and I'll pass it on to Ms. Anderson about other responses.
Sure, thank you.
So I do know that wage equity continues to be a concern for all employees. And the county's classification system is broken a bit. We do know that it's an imperative to fix that. I've spoken to several colleagues with Metropolitan Washington COG and their personnel technical committee. I'm seeing what people are doing throughout the region. It's not lost on me that it needs to get done. I would ask you to give us a little bit more time, to indulge us a little bit, to see exactly where we are, but I do have that as one of my higher priorities.
I appreciate that, and I'll just share also, I know we're in a time crunch, so I'll just share this one thought before yielding to colleagues. I regularly get communication from people in Montgomery County government who are being hired, who have told me and my staff that the county processes have requested their salary history. And that is exactly what my legislation has prohibited. And so having a report to see how the gap has closed is one aspect, but making sure that everybody who's part of the hiring process knows what the law is seems to be a more entrenched problem as well. And it's something that I appreciate you acknowledging needs to be fixed. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. I've got Councilmember Rice, followed by Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you very much. And Council President, I'm going to yield to Councilmember Wandy for one quick thing before I ask my question. So Councilmember Wandy.
Okay, so I love your idea. I think that it's very important and something that needs to be done. But some things that I'm also going to put on your plate is just a few questions that maybe you could ask yourself in order to make yourself different from other programs who want to do the same idea as you, which is just like inquiring like what might be the issue in recruiting. Is it the employees, are they being treated right? Are they being paid right? Are, certain aspects like that, like what's the tension or the issue between those two? So yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sort of pick up off of where Councilmember Wandy was going. I mean, I think that when we're trying to fill jobs, we need to make sure that we're attractive here in Montgomery County, and it's not just about pay. It's about all the things that go into an employee wanting to be here and wanting to work for this county. And I think that, again, part of that goes into our strategy around Ban the Box and our returning citizens. And so my question for you is that I know that we've been successful at doing that from a legislative perspective, similar and akin to what Council Vice President Glass was saying, but there's still that resistance for managers to take that step. I talked to a gentleman just the other day who had worked with my office and Donna Rojas to become gainfully employed after being incarcerated for 26 years. He's been working for the county now for 4 years and has been an excellent employee. And so I just ask you, what's your message to hiring managers when it comes to these kinds of things that we know that we've put in place that say, this is what we want from you, but they've always been doing it a certain way? And how do we get them, even though legislation says, don't consider those things anymore, don't do those kinds of practices that stifle people from working for the county, how do we get them to get to that next level?
So Councilmember Rice, thank you for asking that question. It's very compelling. And that's part of what I mentioned, what I was referring to when I mentioned sort of lifting the veil in OHR around hiring. So the staff has worked on a hiring playbook under the county executive's leadership. The county executive is very concerned about accountability and our regulatory environment. I think that there is a significant training gap for managers and hiring officials throughout the county, and that would be an area that we would concentrate on. Thank you.
I've had many conversations with Ms. Anderson about the need to restore the management training program that was once here. I'm sure Council President Albornoz remembers what was here and what was understandably put aside during the Great Recession. But that may have been a cost-cutting measure that wound up having a lot of impact on the organization. The county executive is very fond of telling a story about going to an HHS management meeting and asking people in the room, how many of you have received a management training? And very few hands went up. He has wanted to address that. We all know the last 4 years have presented us with a series of challenges that we probably never, ever envisioned. but it is something the county executive and I have made clear to Ms. Anderson that that is something we want to move forward with. Ms. Kasiri and I have been working on that, getting out the old plans, talking to our prior OHR, some of our retired employees about what we had before, working with the universities at Shady Grove, which is trying to engage more the University of Baltimore and some of their training programs. And Councilmember Rice, you probably know from MACO, there is a robust UB program with other counties in the Baltimore region. That is something that could be quite affordable and something that we could take part in with our municipal partners and other governmental partners at USG to really provide a strong base of training for our managers. Along with Ms. Harling, we've been talking about ways that we also have to restore an annual training program about what's in the collective bargaining agreement, because there are rules and regulations, there are leadership skills, but there's also understanding exactly what we have promised and agreed to with our unions and in the contract, and they need to know how that's changing, and of course whatever changes are made in the law, so that they're up to date in how we are supposed to be hiring, recruiting, training, mentoring, evaluating, and managing our employees.
Thank you. Just fun fact, that program, although it was discontinued, has really interesting alumni. Mayor Muriel Bowser in Washington, D.C. was a graduate of that program, and her mentor was none other than Robin Riley, the current director of the Department of Recreation. So, pretty cool. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. Well, first of all, echo all of the positive comments, Ms. Anderson, about your service, and the company you keep is, I think, reflective of your talent level and your credibility here. And I think it speaks volumes to all of us, those of us who've worked with you and those of us who have seen your efforts. So thank you for that. Just want to acknowledge that. Since colleagues have mentioned a couple bills that haven't gone quite as well as we would hope, and we're looking for a little bit more fidelity moving forward, I did want to acknowledge that the paid parental leave bill that was approved in July was executed starting last week, and really happy about that. I've bumped into some county employees who have thanked me and thanked the council for our efforts on supporting our working parents in county government. I think it's going to be more and more critical as we come out of the post-COVID world and the changes to the economy that we see in order to support those in unique circumstances that aren't so unique. That used to be aberrations and exceptions are now really the rule of what we need to do in order to make it easier to work here and to support the talent and to increase our recruitment and retention. So I want to acknowledge the work that was done. I know OHR played a big role in getting that handled. It was approved in July, and the announcement went out in November, and it started last week, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and express my appreciation for that. I was proud to put that bill forward and glad that the council unanimously supported it. I did want to, though, speak specifically to two points. One, how we're looking at vacancies. This is a huge organization with a lot of employees. The change in the workforce, the ability to pay, the ability to afford to pay our employees what they deserve and what they need, is largely predicated on our ability to be nimble with the size of the workforce and the type of jobs we have in different departments. And I don't think historically we have done particularly well in reclassifying positions to move them into areas where they're more in need, to have our priorities reflected in the staffing that we have. And we largely don't do that by moving employees because individuals have different talent levels and are hired for specific reasons. We generally have the opportunity to do that when there are large numbers of vacancies, which there are, and there have been for quite some time. And so I just wanted to get a sense of how you're going to view that. Are we looking across the enterprise to see how long vacancies have been open, having any type of across-the-board policies for how we're going to address them? And then I also have some specific questions about the study group related to the vacancies. I issued the report, I believe, in April of 2021, and what, if any, progress is happening and what role you'd have in executing any changes related to that that study group. But why don't we start with how you're going to view vacancies, whether or not there are going to be any policies, how that will be developed, and how you're going to approach that particular issue in terms of organizational dynamics.
So, Mr. Councilmember Friedson, I can't speak to the specifics of the study that was done. I do know that the Office of Management and Budget led that work along with the county executive staff. I know that the county executive has an interest in reviewing, especially the long-term vacancies, to see if there is a need to retain those types of positions. So in looking at those jobs as they come up to be recruited, we would have those discussions about the extent to which those jobs are really needed, or if the work has been sort of reallocated.
Appreciate that. And then just in general about how we're viewing vacancies, is that exclusively an OMB conversation? Is that an OMB and OHR conversation? Perhaps this is for CAO Madaleno as well. But I'd be interested to know what role this office and this role, this position will have in that question, because it is central really to all the decisions that we make, what talent we recruit, what we can afford to pay, how we are, moving forward with a human-intensive enterprise, which we have, in order of executing the job that the public, requires of us.
So I'll say it is a both-and function. Both of us, both sides of the House, OMB and OHR, would have to be integrally involved in it. It speaks to what we want our government to look like, how we want the structure to be, and so I would say the human resources would be a key part of that discussion. But Mr. Madaleno can say what has happened with the current study.
So the last 2 years have been extraordinarily challenging. We were in a long period of a hiring freeze, and I would say that one point I've put into the guidebook for dealing with a pandemic in future pandemics is when you have a hiring freeze, you got to start recruitment before you just lift the freeze. And because we didn't, we left some departments. I'll use libraries as an example, because we left the hiring freeze in place, didn't start recruitment until we lifted the hiring freeze, and then we reopened the libraries. And fortunately, working with our partners in the library system in McGeo, we actually extended the amount of hours that we had. And that's left us in a difficult situation of asking people to work more and different types of shifts with fewer people. Libraries is making an aggressive effort to fill the vacancies. They had over 100. I think we're going to close the year with close to 35. Because they have aggressively been out there recruiting and bringing people on. So it's a sign of an aggressive effort with the right leader can bring on the vacant positions. We always continue to look at, we have vacant positions in HHS. Many of them are positions we need to have because there is a federal regulation, there is a state law or regulation, there is a county obligation for some of these positions. We have them backfilled by what in Montgomery County we call broker positions, the contractual holders, employees that we would much rather have full-time staff doing these jobs, whether as nurses, health techs, social workers, the variety of things we do in HHS. And our goal and the county executive's goal has been fill those positions, and maybe with full-time staff that you bring on, you train and you invest in, you could potentially have fewer broker positions. You could eliminate the broker positions, but you could have fewer positions because you're not trying to constantly deal with all of these contractual people coming on and off the work site, and you're just constantly trying to bring them up to speed, and you're never making progress in actually filling the permanent county positions.
Do we have metrics and targets in terms of the number of vacancies that are open at a given time and the span of time that vacancies are open, where it's a green light if it's under 3 months, it's a yellow light if it's 6 months, it's a red light if it's 9 to 12 months, and if it's been vacant for 12 months, the department has to make a case for why they even should keep the position at all, because they've been functioning for a year without. I mean, do we have any metrics like that of what those numbers are, what that timing is?
We have an extraordinarily large amount of data about it, but I also have to caution you, Councilmember Friedson, and you know this, and I'm going to use some of our, you remember this, your days with the state. There's the vacancy rate. We have a lapse rate in the county. There's an assumption that there's going to be a number of positions that are held vacant in order to make a budgetary target that was assumed when the executive proposed the budget, when you adopted the budget. So there are always positions that are left vacant. Some of them are left vacant on purpose to make that lapse target, especially in the smaller agencies. It is easy to fill the oldest position and then start keeping the newest position vacant. I mean, I understand what you're asking for, but at the same time, it is a harder challenge. I have discovered, as someone who sat in, like Council President Alvarez has gone executive to legislative, I've gone legislative to executive. It is a different type of issue grappling within the executive branch.
Well, I'll just note, we have a tremendous amount of respect for you as a nominee. I think we need targets. I think we need metrics. I think we need to be a lot more serious about addressing the vacancies, both in recruiting and actually making the process better, as has been discussed, but also in having a real policy for how we handle vacancies. There was a cost efficiency work group that made a recommendation that was supposed to be 100 vacancies that could be abolished, came out with a recommendation that didn't include 100 vacancies to be abolished. It came out with, I think, 225 supervisory positions that could be repurposed or reconsidered or rethought of in terms of spans of control, which is not really what the purpose of the report was. So I think this is a reset opportunity to really be much more serious about this issue. I think we have the person in place on the OHR side of this conversation, which needs to be part of it in order to actually make it happen. And so I'm urging and strongly encouraging in this moment, before you are confirmed, which I believe you will be, and I will be proudly supporting, that we do this with a lot more seriousness and fidelity. Having a work group recommendation that was frankly unambitious to begin with and has not been executed really at all is just not what we need in order to make the type of reorganization and restructuring of county government to provide the services that residents want and expect, that the executive has put forward, and I think all of us support. And so I think that this is the opportunity where we can actually work together to make that happen. I look forward to working with you to see that through. So I just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick note, colleagues, the resolution to amend council rules and procedures, we're going to move that to the afternoon so that we will be able to have a break. Next, we've got Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good to see you, Tracy. Excited to support you as well. I won't bury the lead. I think you're going to do a great job, and you got a great group here. My former neighbor, Ms. Parker Hamilton. Good to see you back up north. 2 points. I want to build on something that was just mentioned. The vacancy rate. You mentioned libraries. One of the reasons they were able to close it so quickly is because they hired a really aggressive HR manager within their agency to work and try to move things along, and that has yielded some great benefits and progress, as you've mentioned. I think there's a potential model there for, lessons learned about what happened and how they're doing that to explore, that might be expanded to other parts of government, just as a suggestion. I think the point that was made about the management training is critically important, and just as a minimum, the bills that were mentioned, there, give you 2 more. I passed a bill on the ban the box. We expanded the bill that had been passed before. We should be leading on that. We have a role in public education, but also to show and talk about the stories that Councilmember Rice mentioned. And that has typically fallen on the Office of Human Rights, who's always understaffed and under budgeted. I've gone to, we did this before COVID, a great session with employers at the jail in Clarksburg, where we encouraged them to hire returning citizens. That was led mostly by Human Resources. I think HR has a big role to play in supporting that work with your expanded staff. That's just one example. We also passed a bill raising the standard, calibrating and lowering the standard of when workplace-based and sexual harassment reaching a threshold that can actually come forward because it was an unreasonably high threshold. We should make sure everyone knows about that. There should be an HR program to get all that out, and I know it's written somewhere and we passed the laws, but I think along with the other bills that were mentioned, some mechanism, whether it's the training program or not, but I think either other managers need to know too. I don't know how many people that covers, but the mid-level folks, people need to be aware of this so that they know their rights on both ends, any employee. So I think HR has a role there. And I'd say to Mr. Madaleno, I brought this up in the context of the county attorney. Several colleagues have mentioned, and I've mentioned before, bills that have been passed that have not been implemented. We need to have a process, and the county attorney agreed with me, that we are tracking that, and there's some reporting, there's some process to know what's been in place. There's a lot going on. We've all gone through a lot. I don't think there's intentionality here. But what are the requirements of the law? When are the deadlines? And how are we moving forward? And that needs to be systematized, and it's not. And so I think the county attorney has a role to play, but I think in the ones that are related to HR, I think you all have a role to play. You all have the people. Literally, you are the people person. And so we need your help as our branch of government to move those things forward. So I offer those. You can comment on any of them, but I offer them as suggestions and look forward to working with you on each of those points.
Thank you.
No
So
comment.
we've Ms. Anderson and I have had a conversation about assembling the people, like you referenced our new HR director in libraries, Ms. Smith. She recently got married and changed. If that name was different to you, okay. So to bring them together to help inform sort of a work group, a cabinet. I think she called it her kitchen cabinet.
I did. I said that we would assemble a human resource advisory group to advise the director on key areas. This is among those. Lolita Smith, I was on her interview panel, and she was delightful in there, and so I'm not surprised that she's having such success. She comes from a background where she was action-oriented, and I want to help us push everyone to be in that mode. So there are some just-in-time trainings that we can do to help managers understand these imperatives. I don't know that we have a long time to develop a training curriculum to get things done, but I think that there's a moment in time where we can say that these are the expectations, and then to build on that. And that's what I'd like to do with the human resources advisory group.
Got you.
It's a hard acronym. I can't call it the HRAG. It's got to have something a little more than that.
Wonderful. And then I gave you items 2 and 3. We're trying to move along, but just please, there were those 3 items. That issue, the tracking of due dates for legislation, and then also, as an example, the role on returning citizens being much more engaged with human rights on that. I think that's a big issue. So, thank you.
I did have that conversation with Mr. Markovs after his confirmation hearing.
Great. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you again, Ms. Anderson. We'll be taking up action this afternoon on your nomination, and I don't think you have very much to worry about, but we appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Again, colleagues, we're going to skip item number 6 and move that to the afternoon, and so that brings us on to item number 7, which is a work session in action on the state priorities letter for the state delegation. I invite Ms. Wellens to come forward. And Ms. Winger, if you wanted to come forward as well, to save us time, in case we have question, thought, or comment.
Thank you, Council President. We have Ms. Wenger and her team, our other colleagues from the Office of Intergovernmental Relations, and a thank you to them for preparing the draft state priorities letter for your consideration, as they do, and they do well annually. And we have the draft letter to the state delegation laying out the county's priorities for the 2023 legislative session in Annapolis. It also includes within it priority capital projects for the council's consideration. And as you know, this is a joint letter from the county executive and the county council that's done each year. You can see the proposed priorities for your consideration begin at Circle 1. And what we've done is included within this chart that starts at Circle 1, highlighted there, you can see potential additions to the draft that have been suggested by council staff. Council staff are also here to answer any questions you may have. At Circle 5, you can see the draft priorities prepared by OIR, and council staff highlighted the main differences between or additions to this year over last year's priorities letter. The capital projects priority listing is at Circle 8 for your review, Circles 8 and 9, and also included within the packet are prior year's priorities letters for context. So I'm not sure, Mr. President, if you want to go through the chart, or if there are just more globally, if the council wants to ask any questions of OIR or council staff.
Why don't we do global questions in the interest of time? So, and I see Councilmember Jawando had his hand up. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. It's a good list as always. There's always more we could add, but I think it's good to focus, and we were successful last year, so I appreciate all the work that you and your team has done, Melanie, as well as our staff. Just wanted to add on the local authority point, you overlaid, so just so I'm reading this right, the highlighted is what we're adding, right? In Ms. Wellens, like page 3, is that
correct? On Circle 4, where you see local authority, the non-highlighted text is from OIR's draft, and then the highlighted text is what council staff would recommend for your consideration as just an addition to the text.
Well, so below, and I'll get to the point. If you go below, if you go to Circle 7, there's ensure legislation to implement. So you got the canvas point. There was one on last year that we were partially successful in, as far as the local revenue generation and tax brackets. So we got some of that done. We didn't get the ability to raise more revenue, though.
Correct.
So I would just, I'd love to, and I know there is active, the chair of our delegation, Ms. Block-Carr, is going to be introducing a bill to allow for that increase in the cap. So that there can be revenue generated, not just the brackets. So we got the second part of it, if you look on, I think it was Circle 13, we said, it says, expanding the county's authority and flexibility to enact local legislation where necessary, including increasing county flexibility to raise revenue and have local control for property tax classification. So I would just submit that we should, support what we supported last year and have that in there as well, if colleagues agree. I don't think it's very controversial, but that would be my request.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that? Or, Ms. Wellens, do we need a motion to?
You could proceed without objection or a motion.
Okay.
It's at your discretion.
Okay. Doesn't look like. Let's do without objection. I don't see any concern. Motion? Okay. Yep.
Okay, well, I'd just like to make a motion to include that language that we included on our priority list last year, just because we haven't gotten fully there, and there's an effort from the head of our delegation to try to get us there. Yeah, sure.
Where is it going to be?
In local authority, and it would just be, this is Circle 13 is the one from last year that I'm just kind of mirroring. And it has the general statement about expanding the county's authority and flexibility to enact local legislation to address county priorities that aren't fully addressed. And then there's a comma. This is the clause, including increasing county flexibility to raise revenue and have local control for property tax classification. So we'll be adding that clause from last year back in. Is the motion.
Which was what?
Say it again.
What was the clause from last year?
What I just read. That was what I read was in 2022. I'm asking to move that into 2023 as well, which is not currently in the local authority bullet. Did I get that right, Ms. Winger?
got that right.
Okay. So it's on page 13, circle 13, bullet 2, second clause of it, of local authority. So that, my motion would be to add that back in.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Rice. Discussion. Councilmember Councilmember Reamer.
I just want to make a very general point here. I appreciate my colleagues' motion and so forth. The state and the county are awash in money. We have never had so much money. It has flowed down from the federal government, and it is bountiful. I don't think this is the time for us to focus on raising taxes. So this legislation is seeking additional tax-raising authority. It's hard to contemplate when that could be needed. So I think we're out of sync here a little bit with where our fiscal reality is. The goal of this would be to allow us to raise the income tax, I'm sure. And, that's a major issue. That is a major issue. So I would just be very cautious about, at this time when we have significant funds. I mean, we've been approving $10, $20, $30 million left and right on every council agenda lately. I don't know that we need to get into this now. It might not be the right time. So my comment there.
Thank you. Just speaking for myself, point of privilege, I appreciate the motion and the second. I'm not prepared to vote for this right now. I would need to better understand sort of the analysis and the ramifications. And I know this is just enabling, and that could be done at a later time. But for the same reasons I expressed concern about this last year, I'm not prepared to support that at this particular time. So I'm going to be abstaining because I don't feel like I've got enough information to be able to support this one way or the other. But that's just me. Any other colleagues would like to speak to this?
I could just, if not, I just...
Councilmember Juwan.
Yeah, just to be clear, and I appreciate the positions, this is simply asking for the authority we asked for last year. We got some of it, we didn't get all of it. The chair of our Montgomery County State Delegation has a bill to get us this authority. So I don't think it's controversial. It could be used. The future council will decide when and if and how, recession or not, or whenever to use it. I think we should be in the business of getting more authority. So, but appreciate the comments.
I hear you. She's doing this in her capacity as a delegate, not as the chair of the delegation. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, to not misrepresent that view. And I'm not saying you are, Councilmember Chawando. Just want to make that clear. Councilman Vice President Glass.
I appreciate the motion and the intention, and just trying to figure out the processes moving forward. I think that there will be ample time to discuss legislation during legislative review in the next council. I don't know if it needs to be prescribed here, and hearing concerns among this body, recognizing the next body will be different. That might be the best place to have a more vetted conversation where everyone understands what the actual legislation that you're supporting vis-a-vis this document, right? And so I share that, and whether or not you want to withdraw the motion and save that conversation at what I think is probably a more appropriate time.
I mean, I understand the point. I don't think this is about a specific bill. I just use that as an example. Like, last year, there could be multiple bills, and there may indeed be multiple bills, but I just think if it was a priority on our list last year to have more local authority, it should be, and we didn't get it all, it should be a priority this year. I don't know what has changed to have it not be a priority, but, if the council does not want to vote on that, I don't see a need to rescind the motion. I think we should just vote on it, and and then if that's fine too.
All right, we've got a motion and a second, and we can decide what we're going to do. This will be revisited, as Council Vice President Glass mentioned, so there will be another opportunity for us to talk about this within the duration of the next, the upcoming session. But all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. That is Council members Craig, Councilmember Rice, sorry, long morning, Councilmember Rice, Council Vice President Glass, Councilmember Chawando. All those opposed, please raise your hands. That is Councilmember Friedson, Councilmember Navarro, Councilmember Reamer, and Councilmember Katz. And as I said, I am abstaining for now until I have more information. Yeah, that's right. We could have 4-4. Yeah, that's right. All right, so the motion does not pass, but again, we will have another bite at this apple with the next council. And Councilmember Friedson, or Councilmember Reamer, you are in the queue.
Thank you.
That's right. Councilmember Reamer, followed by Councilmember Rice.
Just wanted to ask the director of our transportation department is here, or that could be addressed to him, but I'll start with Ms. Meyer. The $100 million for BRT, can you just expand on what you're seeking there?
That's exactly why Mr. Conklin is here.
I figured.
We
Not a
have-
small item.
Well, we have a bus rapid transit program that is likely to be over $1 billion of total investment. And each year, we've been seeking additional state support to implement that system. So last year, there was significant state funding that allowed us to advance work on the Veers Mill project and a portion of it on 355. We'd like to continue that this year and continue to make progress towards realizing that whole system. So this isn't one particular project, and last year we assigned that money that we received from the state to 3 different projects, 29, 355, and Veers Mill, and we'd like to continue along that to be able to advance that system. So you could ask for more or less, or we'd like to get what we can get, obviously.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to just describe how much did we receive last year? What's the, how are you thinking about the right amount to?
I think it was on the order of magnitude of $70 million. I don't have the precise number here. And that essentially allowed us to advance the Veers Mill project in its entirety. So we would look to a similar strategy to fill out pieces of the system. You'll remember last year the council appropriated money associated with the Opportunity Lanes project. It's unclear today whether that project will advance or not. So if we were to receive this money this year and that money didn't materialize, we could keep the plans on track that had been established last year. If that money does materialize, then the 355 South component might be able to move forward. And I think later today even you're considering a supplemental appropriation for a next phase of project on US 29 that doesn't have funding beyond the preliminary engineering. This could be used for that as well.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to talk about our broadband accessibility and affordability. No surprise there. But the paragraph, I think, needs to be changed a little bit. There's one word in particular, but I'd like to wordsmith this a bit. So support efforts to expand state initiatives and enable local initiatives that enhance broadband accessibility and affordability, with particular attention to programs that ensure underserved, not urban, underserved areas are eligible to receive funding for broadband infrastructure, period. We have urban in there right now. Many of us know that some areas in our agricultural reserve are underserved, and so we need to have funding for broadband infrastructure to get to those areas. So that would be the first one.
Second that.
Thank you.
If we're because we're formally voting, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, well, yeah, if we have discussion, let's go ahead and...
Okay, we got a
Councilmember
motion
Reamer,
and a
please.
second. Councilmember Reamer?
Well, I mean, I would appreciate hearing from the executive branch on this, but my understanding is that there's a lot of concern at the full state level that the broader state direction is overwhelmingly towards essentially rural broadband support. And so there's an effort to balance that and ensure that funding is available both for urban and more rural. So I'm discerning that that's the reason that word is there.
Could I just make a suggestion? I agree with the motion, the motioner, but I also agree with your point. Could we say all underserved areas? That would include urban and rural. I mean, this creates the idea that we're not pursuing, or the concern is that this creates an idea that we're not pursuing access to broadband in the agricultural reserve, which would be a problem. But I do understand the executive branch's intention here, which is to promote some of the other areas of the county that have, a lack of service and a lack of access that we want to promote, which is not necessarily prioritized to the level that we would want it at the state level. So I think if we say all underserved areas, that would be inclusive of
Perhaps you
both.
You could say both. You could say it explicitly, underserved areas including both rural and urban.
Sure.
I
So we'll
think
accept that as a
might-
friendly.
That might solve the challenge.
Absolutely. Jeff.
Okay, and then so it would be a period, because that's quite a long sentence at that point. But I think that it's important for us, and nomenclature does matter in this instance, to where we talk about digital literacy. What we have now is, it says as well as digital inclusion regarding access training and devices. And what I think we would want to say is that digital literacy is one of the biggest obstacles to connectivity, and we need to ensure that there's digital inclusion regarding access, training, and devices. And I don't know if Mitzi, if you had any comments about that, but I know that our work here as a county, when it comes to digital literacy programs and ensuring that we're ramping those up, is a very big deal for us right now, and something that we'd want to have the state help us, and certainly help us financially, as well as when it comes to infrastructure.
Amitzka Herrera, Office of Broadband Programs, Department of Technology, Enterprise Business Solutions. The only point I would actually make is, in most discussions now, people are trying to move away from digital literacy to use digital skills, just because it creates a perception that I'm illiterate, and so as opposed to I need skills training. So just whatever the wording comes up, I would just recommend.
So we could, yeah. No, I agree with
tweaking it
that.
on
I agree
that
with that
front.
wholeheartedly. I think that's great. It's just like when we were talking about achievement gap and then equity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with it altogether. So yeah, so if we can just wordsmith that a bit, that would be great. Thank you.
I think without objection. Okay. Thank you. Did anybody else want to chime in? No? All right. So I think we're all set. Ms. Wellens, is there anything else that we need to cover on this item?
I don't believe so, Mr. President. So I think that before you is the, excuse me, the proposed priorities, beginning at Circle 1, with the amendments that you voted on with Councilmember Rice's amendments regarding the digital skills point.
So can I get a motion to move our state legislative priorities as amended? Sorry. What? Moved by Councilmember Rice, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. No other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. Yeah. And that is unanimous among all of those present and virtual. All right. So thank you very much. That moves us on to our consent calendar, I believe. Let me just confirm. Yes. Can I get a motion to accept our consent calendar? Moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Jawando. All those in favor of approval of the consent calendar, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present and virtual. We will now recess until 1:15, where we will be providing a proclamation recognizing Ms. Arva Jackson by myself and Councilmember Rice and the County Executive. And then we have public hearings after that. And once again, we will take up the issue of the resolution to amend council rules and procedure this afternoon. Thank you. With that, we are adjourned for our afternoon recess.